We are back. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Logging Off League, part two of day two. We are going to be getting into FNE versus H2O very shortly. This will be our final match of the day, and this will be our fourth match of playoffs round. We have four matches planned for tomorrow. I'm Juliet here with Nemo. We will be your commentators once more for this fantastic final round of matches.
That's right. That's right. Welcome in, everybody. Thanks again for joining us. And if you're just tuning in for now, welcome on in. Before we get started, we do want to give ourselves some time for our teams to get in order and start that ban and pick selection. So we are going to be starting off with some confessions sent in by Identity 5 players through our collaborators IDV Confessions.
We're going to go We're going to go ahead and start with our first confession right away. It reads, the amount of survivors without borrowed time that I'm meeting in rank is kind of insane. I mean, I get it if you have a team, but I'm in Griffin tier and they always play solo. So I don't know how people can trust random Griffin slash Mammoth teammates so much. Sob emoji. Yeah, I do completely understand there. Borrowed time is a very useful skill to have, especially when you're trying to get as many people out of the gate as possible in order to get that win. Especially when you have tiers on the line and points on the line, you want to make sure you can get as many people out there. And unfortunately, with borrowed, like even though so many personas for survivors are so useful, borrowed time does help in a pinch, especially if the hunter has an advantage going into that final stick.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like I ghost submitted this confession because I am definitely one of those people who side eye builds. And it's really interesting to see how the overall opinion on these builds have changed ever since the introduction of Flywheel. Of course, we had to say goodbye to Spectator. And I think even just before then, there would be people not bringing borrowed time as well. And I feel like nowadays it's more kite heavy if we want to bring flywheel and knee jerk reflex. But in a tourney level, it definitely makes sense because we want to ensure that we get as many points as possible, even if it's just going to be one escape. And if it takes at least one sacrifice, then so be it, right? But in the setting such as rank, like this person who has submitted this confession is expressing, you're not doing a best of three. You're not having the same amount like people that you're going up against. You don't know who or what you're going to go up against or what you're going to be dealing with. So sometimes it's best to go with the safer route, especially if you're unfamiliar with the people on your team. You really do have to make on the fly decisions to cooperate with one another, especially as survivors. And it's not always guaranteed you're going to be get the optimal situations for whoever's bringing borrowed time or not. Uh, it's really hard to have to adjust. And when you have people with borrowed time or lacking it, you have to adjust the entire direction of your match, and you can kind of get choked on the spot just over this one trait. So, yeah.
Oh yeah. And also there is that added factor too, like you were saying, it's different in tourney and rank. And one of the biggest reasons for that as well is the fact that it's very rare to see a full four teamed VC survivor team. Sometimes you'll have two teammates, maybe like a ranking buddy, maybe two. And then of course, like this person mentioned, a solo ranking as well. And that does change a lot too, because you don't have that you can VC in Identity 5 now. I am glad they added that feature, but usually you don't know the people you're playing with, so it gets difficult to coordinate like you would a team that knows what they're doing, knows what each other's mains are, knows what each other's strengths and weaknesses are. It's just, I think in certain cases, even if unless you're a really good fighter, you know what you're doing, it's better to just be safe than sorry.
Yeah, for sure. On the bright side, I do appreciate that they've been able to implement the feature where we can see what survivors are bringing above their heads in the lobby. But at the same time, it is so easy to forget that someone is actually not bringing borrowed time. It's kind of in the same vein that you might forget that a hunter is bringing confined space, for example. Maybe someone pinged it, but you forgot about it. Maybe someone pinged dungeon and you forgot where they ended up pinging that. It's kind of the same sentiment. Like, oh, I accidentally forgot that this person in particular is bringing no borrowed time. So, yeah, and in such a fast-paced game, and okay, I do think we have to move on to our next confession just to make sure that we get through all of these. But I'll go ahead and read our second one. How do you get over hunter anxiety? It's been a few months since I played as hunter, and I just feel overwhelmed with the new survivors. Power creep, you know. Any advice? I feel like I also ghost wrote or ghost submitted this confession as well. As a pro S badge Croc one. Or not Croc one even. I'm a Cobra one. It's so intimidating to play Hunter.
Oh yeah, Hunter is definitely, it can feel very thankless at times, you know. You There's always the chance you're gonna get a team full of Smurfs. There's always a chance that Cypher Rush is gonna creep up on you. There's always a chance that the survivor you're gonna teleport to the wrong cipher or gate. Always a chance you're gonna lose. There's just a lot that goes on. I think if I could give any advice as a Hunter main myself, I would say make sure you find a hunter that feels right for you. You know, I've tried different hunters, given them a chance, and there are some hunters that I would play really well with, that have a kit that I mesh very well with, that I do very well with, and there are other hunters that are just very difficult for me to play. I get very frustrated playing them. So I would say make sure you find a character that you can master and learn inside and out, and then from there, Hunter will feel a lot easier the more you start playing as them.
Yeah, really well said. Thank you for your input, Juliet. I really love to hear the perspective of hunter mains, as a survivor main myself. So I definitely like that tip. I don't find myself playing hunter very much, but when I do, I also prefer to play the hunters that I'm comfortable with, both in terms of gameplay and just characters that I genuinely really like. I mean, it's no secret. Everyone will find out eventually that I really love Norton Campbell, but I also really love the Geisha and Axe Boy, especially. I consider them some of my favorite characters. So when I feel intimidated by a survivor team, sometimes I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna go as Geisha because I'm comfortable with her kit, and at the very least, I get to play as in the perspective of a beautiful woman, and whatever happens in the match, well, I have a beautiful woman to comfort me right in front of me.
Yeah, that's one of the pluses of Identity 5. They have such cool character designs. And you know, sometimes that design will lure you into a character. For example, my very first Hunter main was Soul Weaver because I liked the way she looked. And then when I started playing as her, it really meshed well with me. But as
Mhm.
time went on, I used to be a PC player and then had to switch to mobile. And then once I started playing mobile, I just couldn't play her like I used to. And I think in that case, unfortunately, sad as it may be, you can keep trying to play that character and get frustrated, but you can get frustrated playing any character because you're always going to have those bad days as a hunter. But my suggestion is just keep trying. If you really want to learn this character, don't get discouraged. Continue to keep practicing. You know, yeah, sometimes you'll lose. Sometimes you'll have survivors that wait for you at the gate and just wait to harass you at the very last second. And other times you'll be able to terror shock them off chairs in the nick of time
Mhm.
and turn things around. So it really just depends on how you play and how dedicated you want to be to figuring out what works for you.
For sure, really well said. And Juliet, if we want to go over the last confession before we proceed into our ban and pick selection.
Oh, for sure. Let me go ahead. My Roman Empire is my ex duo. We became friends, DM'd, played different modes, and went from Hound to Griffin together. It was just us for a year and a half, but then she started queuing with other players who seemed better than me. I got insecure and slowly stopped playing with her. We eventually unfriended each other in all apps, so I've been solo queuing for the past 2 years after that. I always thought we would continue to be friends and pass Griffin together. We did, just not together. I feel like violin music should have been playing while I read that.
Do, 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 do.
Yeah, that was a very fun read. Thank you for that one. I do feel for whoever wrote this. I hope you're doing well. I hope solo queuing has been going well for you. But I do think, unfortunately, yeah, sometimes people want different things from this game. You know, some people do play it more casually and enjoy playing with their friends and don't take it super seriously. And then other people do want to rise up in the ranks and seek out teammates that'll help them achieve that. And you know, it's unfortunate. Sometimes people's play styles just clash, but it's better, I guess, to realize that in the long run than to, I guess, have things go worse by sticking together when your play styles just don't mesh properly.
Yeah, for sure. Similarly to how, just in life in general, sometimes people are only temporary, or sometimes they're right, but just for that certain time period. And sometimes we do have to let go of our ex duos or ranked teams and whatnot. But at the end of the day, I hope everybody remembers that there's always going to be space for more. You never know who you're going to meet. It could go good, it could go bad, but most importantly, there's a lot of people who share similar experiences with you. There's a lot of people who can synergize with you really well in matches. And who knows, maybe in your solo queue, you might find those people. Before we move it, I do want to give a shout out to some of the staff here because genuinely, the reason I knew some of the people here is because I met them through solo queue. And I feel like it's so interesting to kind of look back on that, like, wow, like what are the odds? But
Yeah, that was actually very beautifully put, Nima. Yeah, whoever wrote that, I do hope that you're maybe hopefully able to find people you can play with that match your synergy, and hopefully you can rise up the ranks together. But we are going to be getting ready to go into our matches. Thank you so much, everyone, for sending in those confessions. They're a lot of fun to read and a great way to get everyone comfortable as we get ready to start our matches.
for sure. Now we are going to go into our ban and pick selection. We did figure out which maps we're going to be banning and picking as well before we lock in with our characters.
Yep, that's right. We are going to go ahead and get our map picks ready, as well as our band picks. Very excited for our final match today. Is there anyone in particular you're hoping to see, Nima? I know Toy Merchant and Fool's Gold are always high on your list.
Absolutely. I would love to see the fire investigator. Full stop. Oh, full disclosure as well. For our season 2 for Aloe League, we are going to be having a cutoff for the available character pool. For the survivors, it is going to end off with fire investigator, and for hunters, it's going to end off with the shadow. So unfortunately, we won't be able to have any Pharaoh Lady gameplay or Goatman just quite yet. But you can definitely look forward to seeing maybe a bit of Pharaoh Lady in the upcoming official tournaments.
Yes, that speaking of, those official tournaments are going to be starting next week. We'll be seeing I Identify Stellaris, where all of our participating regions in COAs and IVTs, their winners come together to play a invitational together for a prize pool. Be sure to go on to cheer for all those teams, but especially our NAU representation rival. Uh, Go ahead and cheer for them. They are in Macau, I believe, getting ready for that big tournament. But we are going to get into the game today. We have H2O hunting first. They went ahead and banned Chinatown, and they've picked Ever Sleeping Map as their first map. And H2O has also banned Priestess and Seer, locking in Prisoner and Gardener for their first two picks.
Ooh, I'm really excited to see. Of course, Gardener, really high potential and really honorable pick when it comes to our round 1 tournament matches. Prisoner is a really fun one as well because we have a decoder. He's a little bit squishier, but with the introduction of Ivy into the meta, we've definitely seen a rise in Luca as well to support that decoding.
Yes, I am a huge fan of the prisoner, as you can tell by my funky little skeleton. But I'm always excited to see him. I'm so glad he's come up in the meta recently. You know, he does work as a decent kiter as well as a very good decoder, able to harass a little bit as well. But we are going to also have our gardener, who is one of the most most used survivors recently due to that shield helping her out in the meta so much. And we do have our rescuer band picks ready. We've banned the first officer, and we've picked the mercenary as our rescuer. Very strong band, very strong.
Yeah, fascinating. It's usually the other way around, but I'm really excited to see the mercenary in play, especially as a third lock-in. It could open up for Merc in the future since our global bans will soon be Prisoner and Gardener, but I definitely think that this is a really great map for the mercenary as well. There's a lot to work with in terms of your elbow pads, especially if you end up getting chased. We are at a time where rescuers are definitely not snubbed in terms of first target options.
Oh yeah, the first officer and mercenary are two of the strongest rescuers in the game currently. If you see one band, you'll almost always see the other one picked. Though you
Mhm.
do see Grapekeeper here and there in MAU particularly. He's always a fun third option as well. But we are going to get our final band picks. We've gone ahead and banned the psychologist, and the coordinator has been locked in. She's also a very popular rescuer, though she's used less for rescuing and more for kiting and using that gun when she's able to. That is one of the strongest guns in the game, even though you only get one of them. As long as you use it wisely, it can change everything.
Yeah, for sure. Even just today alone, we've seen a little bit of coordinator gameplay. Uh, we've seen just the way that you can utilize the flare gun's versatility. We've seen it in first kite. We've seen it to be used after first rescue to help buy time for the person getting rescued to transition away even further from the hunter. And I'm curious to see how they're going to go about that. Another point that I do want to bring up with this team composition is that it's very chest and new item friendly. I definitely love the strategy where you get to switch around your items. Gardener, Mercenary, and Coordinator, especially, are able to go into the chest and swap their items rather than having to deplete it. And that could definitely make for interesting strategy if, say, Gardener or Coordinator happens to be first kite. We can definitely get the other to swap their items and kind of pass on, say, a perfume or a decoy that they happen to pick up from a chest and move on.
Oh
So
yeah,
I'm,
the
yeah.
yeah. One thing too that's really nice about Eversleeping is that they do have a pretty decent supply of chests spread out throughout the game. They do tend to be more in the center of the map, so you just have to be careful where the hunter is kiting, um, because that is, I'd say, the center of the map is a bit more of an open area once you're away from those tight kiting areas with all those pallets to spam. But always good to just know this map. We do have our personas locked in now. We have hide and borrowed time on the mercenary. We have flywheel and broken windows on prisoner, broken windows and tide on gardener, and then the broken windows and borrowed time on the coordinator.
Yeah,
And it looks like our
interesting.
hunt. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see only half of the team bringing borrowed time. We did briefly touch upon such a strategy in the beginning of our stream when we were reading our IDV confessions, but it definitely changes the whole pace of the game and the strategies that survivors have to go with. It definitely allows for the potential for even longer kiting time But in exchange, you really have to limit your options, narrow things down according to who's available and uh, who would make it out.
Oh yeah, this is going to be an interesting team for sure, especially since we have our locked-in hunter as the hermit. Now, this could be a very tricky persona web to bring against a hermit, you know, not having that borrowed time to help take away from all that chip damage you've accumulated throughout the shared damage he brings to survivors. I feel like broken windows is a pretty good thing to bring, and a double tide could be very useful, but we will see if that borrowed lack of borrowed time will come back to bite the survivors in the end.
Yeah, especially up against the hermit. We really don't have much opportunity to pick ourselves up. We are gonna really have to evenly distribute this damage that the whole team is going to tank. Of course, I will vouch for the Gardener. We saw some really impressive Gardener gameplay up against a Hermit in our previous bracket. The recall bubble definitely helps in terms of tanking hits. We saw the Gardener summon up that recall to tank a hit that the kiting survivor was taking during the kite. But another cool part about Gardener and her recall is that if she is the one who's going to be hit, uh, even if the rest of her team is sharing damage with her, the recall will eat up the damage for everybody. But when someone else is getting injured, so long as the Gardener has that recall, she won't take that damage.
Oh yeah, that is very useful for the gardener. She is a very powerful counter to the hermit for that reason. Um, Really, she's been showing up more and more in the meta recently, and when she gets played against a hermit, she usually tends to do very well, being able to distribute that damage in an extra way. And you know, we have characters like the prisoner who's able to connect those ciphers, try to get a little bit faster decoding despite the hermit having everything locked in. I believe he might be.
Uh,
We're getting ready for spawn in, but I'm not sure.
why is it Hell Umber?
Yeah, I think
Oh,
there
okay,
might
okay.
be.
Oh no, it's just because of Hunter's
Oh,
extra time to lock in. Sorry, I
oh,
was
okay. I was getting worried that we might have to pause right away. Worried that we might be having some lag right at the beginning, but glad to see Hermit's there. We have Mercenaries spawning in center, Gardener spawning up north by Geisha. We have the Coordinator spawning in by that false gate down there, Prisoners spawning in the two-story right in front of Graveyard, and Hermit spawning in over by the corner house gate.
all right, and we're moving into the first half of round one with our FNE survivors up against our H2O Hunter. My name is Nima, and I am joined by Juliet for commentating. Good luck to both teams.
Yes, good luck to everybody. We're going to kick things off right away. Hermit automatically getting those cipher connections ready, getting ready to disrupt that decoding as best as he can as he goes to find his first target. It looks like we will be in the area for that gardener who is taking the first kite up over by the two-story corner house.
Yeah, definitely a solid kiting area, especially without basement.
Oh yeah, basement not being here is going to be not too bad, but at least we know now that it will be in the graveyard if they end up kiting over there. We do have everyone working on a cipher currently as the gardener continues to loop around this two-story area. Her bubble hasn't died down yet, but we are going to go ahead and knock it down and try to distribute some damage to some of her teammates. But it looks like due to the connections, that was not a possibility.
Yeah, we did have Prisoner and Coordinator now switching over to blue, so all three of them will be tanking in this next hit. Hermit is well past first presence, of course, but it does look like we're going to be using Warp to change targets. Mercenary is going to be our new target, who uses one of their elbow pads to transition away from this middle cipher.
Yes, it looks like Mercenary is going to go ahead and take over this kite now. He is the only one without any damage, but he's going to go ahead and use one of his elbow pads to gain a bit more distance from the Hermit. And he's going to use his final elbow pad already to go ahead and fully get through that middle all the way towards the graveyard gate. But the Hermit is going to switch around back to the middle. Looks like he is going to be taking on the prisoner who is all the way down up by the gate.
That's right, and we are going to be having prisoner drop down this pallet. Hermit's doing a good job taking these pallets out of commission, but we are going to be going back to the S loop over in the middle. And now three teammates are going to tank this hit.
Yeah, and the Hermit looks to be very near full presence already. No ciphers have been fully decoded yet, but that is not for lack of trying. Prisoner is going to go ahead and loop around the graveyard gate. The corner house gate. Going ahead into this pallet area. Hermit does have fast pallet equipped, so you can see he's been breaking these pallets at a record time. And he's going to go ahead and finally get full presence with a hit on the prisoner that gets shared with the Gardener in particular.
Yeah, unfortunately that 1 second shock did not quite connect or cancel out that stun, but it does look like our prisoner is going to go down.
Yep, that is the prisoner going down, our very first survivor down, but we do have our very first cipher pop as well. It looks like we do have Coordinator and Mercenary still under half health, with the Gardener getting healed right before the Hermit uses Warp to get over there.
It does look like our Mercenary is going to be moving in with a Euphoria after using all 3 of his elbow pads.
Yep, just like you were saying that those chests are getting used. And we are going to get a hit in on the Mercenary, but he will rescue the prisoner, and we do have one of our 2 Tide Turners in effect currently.
Yeah, it does definitely buy some time, a little bit more for the team. We are at 4 ciphers remaining, but this progress is definitely being distributed throughout the ciphers on the map. Luckily, the prisoner isn't able to get hit. He was sharing a polarity with the Coordinator, and Hermit would have been able to damage her even further had the prisoner not go down at that moment.
Indeed, and it looks like we have the Hermit trying to stuff this rescue best as he can. We have two more ciphers decoded for a total of 2 ciphers remaining. We are in for a bit of trouble if we do go to endgame, as the Hermit does not have detention, but hopefully for him, he will be able to deal with this as the prisoner is about to be eliminated, and he is continuing his pursuit of the Mercenary down by False Gate.
Now it does look like we are going to be having Mercenary as our next target, utilizing elbow pad that he got from the chest.
And he will be taking...
Yeah, no, sorry.
Oh, no, sorry. And the hit just barely brings the Mercenary down. He has just a slither of health left, but he's not connected to any ciphers. The Coordinator and Gardener both are, and it looks like Hermit is getting ready to head into that graveyard, which, if we recall, does have the basement. We will see if basement gets utilized as he goes ahead and disrupts Coordinator and Gardener here.
For sure. Of course, we do have our gun to work with. Since we've used Warp, a lot of times we've shown that, we are going to be getting this hit in. Unfortunately, Gardener wasn't able to recall to tank that hit for her. But, we are going to be using the flare gun.
Yes, it looks like that flare gun has bought them some time. Mercenary just went ahead and opened a chest, got himself a decoy. Gardener still has her toolkit, and Coordinator unfortunately no longer has any items. We are attempting to go ahead and bring down that Gardener as she goes ahead and continues to kite through the graveyard area. We're going to go ahead and try to aim for another stun. She's currently the only one with a polarity at the moment, which is very helpful for the survivors. But it looks like the Mercenary and Coordinator are healing as the Gardener continues to loop around. But she was able to recall right before the Hermit stunned her. This could potentially be a changer.
Yeah, he didn't quite get over the pallet, so it did force him to break that pallet as Gardener recovered from her stun. That is going to put our recall at quite a longer cooldown, but Gardener is going to go down here at the graveyard.
Yes, and it looks like the Hermit is going to be taking her down to that basement after all. The Mercenary and Coordinator did have enough time to get healed up. Both of them are just under half damage, but neither of them are currently connected to Oh, it looks like the coordinator has got a bit of polarity. We'll just make sure that the mercenary hopefully doesn't get that polarity as he tries to go in for the rescue. But the hermit has gone ahead and turned off the cipher connections, is trying to disrupt that cipher progress as long as he can.
Yeah, for sure. And we really are taking off this cipher connection to ensure that mercenary and coordinator do not split this damage.
Oh yeah, and we now are going to go ahead and pursue that coordinator. The mercenary is going in for the rescue. He will definitely be getting there after half. Oh, but we will go ahead and down the coordinator with that attack. And we're going to use warp to try to get over to that gardener's chair. Most likely going to try to down her in order to get out. All right, we're trying to land a hit on the gardener and the mercenary. The gardener was able to recall and is currently getting out, but we are able to stun her. And with a fall hit, the gardener will be going down. And the mercenary is still... Oh! Oh, man.
Really well played by Eddie here. That really required so much patience and discipline, but it really paid out in the end. Despite the gardener trying to chaperone the mercenary out with her recall, she is able to get drop down hit just as the recall is finishing up. And mercenary unfortunately cannot utilize that euphoria to tank that damage since Hermit does have a little bit of an increase in terms of damage, and mercenary didn't have anyone to share that polarity with. Coordinator is going to go ahead and pop our last cipher here.
Yes, and we are heading into the endgame situation. At this point, it does look like the survivors are going to just try and either try to get that rescue or just try to outlast the hunter and escape. Now remember, we don't have detention right now, and the coordinator is at full health thanks to bringing borrowed time. This could definitely end up being a... Oh, and a very good closing. Very nicely done on the hermit's part.
For sure, we're a little bit sandwiched in this situation with Hermit on our opposite side. The dungeon is unfortunately located by the outside of Graveyard by Mercenary's chair. That chair time is definitely really slow, but we're gonna get a hit on the coordinator through the pallet, resulting in a 4-man elimination.
Oh my gosh, incredibly well played by the hunter there. Very, very well done. I always get nervous when hunters don't bring detention. But as we could see here, this was a hunter that knew what he was doing. He knew exactly what he needed to do. And as we could see, this is a classic Hermit Snowball. That was a phenomenal 4-man elimination. Those basement downs were fantastic to watch.
Yeah, really great discipline. And honestly, really great utilization of everybody's skills and abilities. Honestly, that was 4 times, I believe, 4 if not 5, the warp was utilized. And it really goes to show how much of a threat this new trait is. I think it was used very well, despite this team really doing their best to distribute the damage. Just knowing when to change targets and when to harass these ciphers and stunt the decoding progress was really key. And it's unfortunate that the last 2 ciphers were on that sort of side of ever sleeping, especially right by the basement. It put them in a rough scenario.
Oh yeah, that you were absolutely right. That catching that the basement was not over by the corner house. The fact that it ended up getting used in the graveyard, and boy did it get used. The survivors did put up the best fight they could. The mercenary had very good utilization of those chests, used that euphoria. He did try to use the euphoria in the basement. Unfortunately, there just wasn't enough time to use it before he went down. But overall, very, very good work from these teams. This will put H2O at an advantage going into the second half of the match. They do have a 5-0 lead, getting that extra point for that 4-man elimination. FNE's Hunter is going to need to get a 4-man elimination to draw the match. If any H2O survivors escape, this round will go to H2O.
Yeah, we're really making things intense right from the get-go, just how I like it, and just how this tournament has been going on so far. It really goes to show the skill level of all of these players and just how neck and neck they are. I'm really glad that these teams were put against one another, even though we're only in the playoff stage. It is a shame that whoever we won't be seeing whoever doesn't move on for this season 2, but at the very least, we can definitely expect to just enjoy all of this team's gameplay while they're up and running, and we can definitely uh, anticipate that we are going to be seeing them put their best foot forward.
Oh, yes. Yes, we're going to start into our band picks for the second half, getting right into it. FNE Hunting, H2O Surviving. Our very first survivor bands, to the surprise of no one, is the Seer and the Priestess, two of the strongest survivors in the game. That Priestess, especially, is very tricky on Eversleeping. I mean, this isn't called the Priestess's Playground for nothing.
Definitely. Taking her off the table is always a safe bet, especially on Ever Sleeping Town. You not only have so many buildings that you can make transitional portals to, but the long portal especially can come into play. It's quite a bigger map as well, and I definitely recall seeing, even in past tournaments, maybe Koa, I distinctly remember there was a time where the priestess was using the long global portal to someone who got downed at the very edge of graveyard, like beyond graveyard where there's like the carriage and the pallet and so. And they did a long portal against the wall, and the priestess was able to pick up the survivor. I think it was a forward, and then go to the other side of the map. It was a huge game changer. So ever since then, I've always been an advocate for banning priestess on Ever Sleeping Town, especially.
Oh, absolutely. The Priestess is brutal on this map. And the Seer is just brutal in any situation, really. He's able to remotely send that owl to protect his teammates, go ahead and give them a shield and tank a hunter's hit. But speaking of tanking hits, we do have the Gardener back as one of our first picks, as well as the Acrobat. Now, we saw last match how useful Recall is when it comes to the Gardener. And the Acrobat, he's one of the strongest kiters in the game, able to use those 3 different bombs to get different debuffs on a hunter, able to jump over small pallets. And we also do have our rescue picks, just like last time. First Officer's been banned, and that Mercenary's been picked again.
Yeah, for sure. They're definitely a bit of a trade-off, especially in terms of optimal rescuers we want to have on the playing field. Luckily, they're able to lock in with these characters without getting that global ban in, but we will be saying goodbye to Gardener and Acrobat after this match. Uh, it is a good call to bring them. However, I do want to see, we've seen really great recalls. I'm wondering if we could possibly see that toolkit utilized to dismantle some chairs, depending on which hunter we're going to be going up against. I know that it's possible for Fafa to be hunting, and with all hunters on the table, and considering the amount of uh, unexpected hunter picks we've been getting, even just in round 1 alone of LOL, I could definitely anticipate maybe some Soul Weaver. She doesn't necessarily have to utilize the chairs around this map, but they do tend to be a little bit spread out, and it kind of works in Gardener's favor as well. I think around the middle, they're a little bit closer to one another, but if you are able to bring those struggle builds as well as stay on top of dismantling these chairs, it can really pose a threat to the hunter.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of damage these survivors can do on against any team. And it just goes to show you these are such universal picks for survivors that we can really be anticipating just about anyone, an opera singer, a shadow, even like map situational hunters like the Soul Weaver, potentially, disciples. Night Watch tends to be a very popular ever sleeping pick, but we are going to be locking in our final set of our final survivors. We have the Antiquarian Band, going to look to avoid that very powerful close counter stuns, but we are going to go ahead and lock in the Lawyer just to get that little bit of decoding boost and potentially anticipating an opera singer pick with that choice, I believe.
For sure. It's always a pleasure to see these decoders being put up, especially in the first round as well. We did see the prisoner last game, although he definitely had to quite a bit. The lawyer's map will definitely assist if we still have to kite, but otherwise, it definitely promotes decoding, especially on a team with characters like the Mercenary, who does have a decoding debuff.
Oh yeah, the mercenaries decoding debuff doesn't help out very much. The priestess does
Mhm.
have a debuff in the way that her calibrations are just a little trickier. So if you're a master at the calibrations, you shouldn't have too much of a problem overcoming that, especially if you're also focused on supporting your teammates. Overall, yeah, it's a very. Oh wait, the priestess was banned. My bad.
Yeah, no worries. It is interesting to discuss. I was gonna be like, oh my gosh, that's the same with Prospector. With the more calibrations, the smaller calibrations. But uh yeah, that's always something to look out for, especially when the hunter is keeping close an eye on the cipher progress or
Oh
looking for
yeah.
their next target.
Oh yeah. But yeah, we do have a very strong team here with really only the mercenary having that decoding debuff. Everyone else has a very strong decoding for Cypher Rush. Yeah, the acrobat is tends to have a problem with the exit gate, but as long as you
Yeah.
have a few other survivors handy, or if he went ahead and sacrificed himself as a first kite, you won't have to worry about that. Overall, this is a very strong Cypher Rush team, a team that can anticipate taking hits because you know that lawyer can has that anti-terror shock ability, which makes him very useful, especially in an area with so many pallets and windows like Eversleeping.
Definitely. I do really love that unique trait of no terror shocks for lawyer. I should pick him up. I've got a
Well,
75% terror shock rate for rescue, so
well,
maybe that
lawyer
will
doesn't
fix
come
me.
free with the game.
True, true.
All right. Oh, and it looks like you were right, Nemo. We are getting to see Fafa's Soul Weaver today. Soul Weaver will
Yeah.
be coming in. We have Mercenary bringing Borrowed Time and Tide. Everyone is bringing Borrowed Time except for the lawyer who has Broken Windows instead. He's the only one with Broken Windows. Mercenary is the only one with Tide, and then Flywheel on Lawyer, Acrobat, and Gardener.
Yeah, really exciting. I'm so excited to see some Soul Weaver gameplay. We haven't quite yet seen her in this tournament so far, but many of us are no stranger to Fafa Soul Weaver, and I think on a map like Ever Sleeping, there are definitely really optimal areas to set up these webs, and with such an open map as well, once the Soul Weaver has garnered enough speed, uh, it's really on par with, say, Mercenary's elbow pad or using these broken windows to get that speed boost. I'm really looking forward to it. And of course, she can slow you down as well. That's always fun to see when survivors do
Oh
like
yeah.
the little slow mo.
I know it's always so much fun to watch them in slow motion. I really got to try to. Hopefully, the way they've updated her camera will let me play her again. She's so much fun to play.
Mhm.
A really useful chip damage hunter as long as you can get that half presence in. She is going to be bringing detention and confined spaces today. Confined space is a very useful trait to have when you're in a place like Eversleeping. You know, all those windows to for survivors to jump through. You want to block those off, especially if you're going to go ahead and kite that one two-story area down by the graveyard. Um, and you know that those webs are really useful. The chip damage, everything, and then the tension can really come in handy, especially if you have chip damage against someone like the mercenary. Just getting him down fast, you're not giving him that time to escape with his delayed damage.
Absolutely. Yeah, and another thing that I feel like we haven't talked about this quite yet for the bracket, but both teams definitely need to watch out for that tram. I'll put that out
Yes.
there. Not manifesting it, but fair warning, you know?
Oh yeah, that tram can really sneak up on someone. You know, there aren't that many map hazards in Identity 5 maps, but the tram is one of the most notorious. It does give you a prolonged stun if you get knocked down by it, and especially for that Soul Weaver. I know her body does tend to put her in the line of fire a lot more than the average hunter because she's very horizontally built as opposed to vertically built. So you
Mhm.
just have to be extra careful, especially when you're up towards tight kiting areas like in that North Pallet area. You just always have to be careful.
Definitely. And now it looks like we are moving into our area selection. We're gonna go for, as I like to call it, the toll formation. It looks like the Kanato, but you can consider it like a half plus. We've been seeing a lot of plus for these area selections. Having the lawyer stick out is definitely like a choice, but I do love that particular spawn for decoders or squishier members of the team. Fafa is gonna go ahead and complete this formation to make a plus sign, and we are going to be having Soul Weaver spawn in that corner by the graveyard gate.
Yes, it looks like the Soul Weaver is going to have her pick of survivors to hunt after. We are getting into the second half of round one. H2O surviving, FNE hunting. I'm Juliet, and this is Nima, and we'll be commentating for this match. Good luck to both teams.
Yeah, good luck. This is going to be so exciting. Now, of course, there is quite a bit of pressure on Fafa to ensure that they get four-man elimination if we want to tie this round. Uh, but it does look like we're going to go for the Acrobat as our first chase.
Yeah, the Acrobat is a pretty annoying survivor to deal with throughout the match. I definitely don't blame the Soul Weaver for wanting to get him out of the way first. I see as he just went ahead and used one of his bombs, giving the hunter a debuff for a temporary, and he's getting ready to go ahead and use another one. This is a very tight hiding spot, a very good spot for the Acrobat down here at this false gate.
For sure, and we are going to be using that red bomb, so Soul Weaver won't be able to use any of those traits temporarily. It does look like they're back online, so we just need to watch out, but Acrobat is going to get a first hit over by the pallet.
Yes, that's going to be halfway to half presence, which is what the Soul Weaver needs to in order to unlock that chip damage. She's going to go ahead and avoid that final bomb from the Acrobat as he goes ahead and continues to transition Kite over into the tunnel area by the graveyard gate and down towards the pallet area in front of that two-story.
We are closing in on this Acrobat who does a beautiful bomb, but unfortunately is going to get downed. Really great utilization of the webs here for that speed boost despite such an open area. We are going to get shared in the middle. Ooh, so
Yes.
our mercenary has had to abandon Cypher for now.
Yes, and unfortunately we only have two ciphers decoded. We have the Vengeance spawning in right where it did in the last match, right over by Graveyard. Trying to get that chip hit on the mercenary. Those are crucial to downing the mercenary. He is countered hard by chip damage. But we will go ahead and rescue the Acrobat after half using our only use of Tide Turner. And the Acrobat will take a hit. He will be going down once the Soul Weaver catches up. Oh! Oh!
Fortunate.
He went ahead and got... Oh! Acrobat hit by a tram to get hit again and nearly give full presence to the Soul Weaver as he goes down a second time.
Oh, and we are going to be seeing this Acrobat in a web instead of a chair.
Oh yeah, that's a very interesting choice. We're going to go ahead and just sacrifice some of the webbing in order to go ahead and chair that Acrobat right where he is. But the mercenary is going to go ahead and use one of his elbow pads to try and get this rescue in. He doesn't have any damage so far, but we were able to land a chip hit on the mercenary right as he goes to rescue the Acrobat. But we will not be able to rescue because of that hit, and the Acrobat will be seen in elimination.
That was a really close call. He almost got spat on and is going to use the last elbow pad to transition away from the graveyard area. Oh my goodness. Unfortunately, Acrobat was sent back to the manor on second web, but a mercenary is going to eat one more spit and will be going down.
Yes, this is some... Oh! And we're going to, instead of going to pick up the mercenary, we're going to go ahead and try to disrupt that Cypher progress by using teleport. We're going to go ahead and start chasing the lawyer around here. Now, we are at full presence, so the hunter does have maximum cooldown.
Oh! Ooh. Thank goodness they're playing lawyer, because that could have been a terror shock.
Yeah, absolutely. That is where that comes in handy, because that could have changed everything very quickly. But we will see the gardener has rescued the mercenary. Oh no, has healed the mercenary, and now they're working on healing each other as the lawyer continues to take the kite and transition towards the middle of the map.
Yeah, for sure. we are going to be having our sights still on Lawyer as Gardener opens up a new cipher and Mercenary picks up a new item from the chest. We're gonna use that heavy hit to down the Lawyer at Graveyard here.
Very nicely done from the Soul Weaver. Doesn't have enough thread to go ahead and hit the Lawyer with a cocoon, but we are going to go ahead and carry him all the way up to where we see the Gardener decoding. We're going to try to disrupt that cipher progress. Very smart of the Soul Weaver, as that is a cipher over halfway done.
When we're not quite going to get that recall in for the Gardener, but it does allow for the Mercenary to get a little bit of a backdoor rescue.
Yes,
now,
and it looks like we did... Sorry.
No, you're good. Gardener does have recall progress, thankfully, so is able to practically insta-call up that bubble.
Yeah, but it looks like she knows she's about to go down. She's leading the Soul Weaver off into the corner, and the Soul Weaver has used up some webbing, so she can't cocoon them in that corner. Instead, she'll be taking the Gardener over to get Chair for the first time. We do have Lawyer still at half health, trying to focus on decoding as the Mercenary is on standby at full health, but the teleport is up, and the Soul Weaver is back to try and get that Lawyer down.
Yeah, and thanks to these webs giving the Soul Weaver this speed boost, Lawyer is going to be going down. And unfortunately, we are going to have another basement chair. Wow, this is really going to intensify the course of the match. Luckily, Gardener is able to return to that other cipher, and it does look to be about 80%. We can definitely get this primed by the time Mercenary is able to get to the chair. But since this is Lawyer's second chair, it does look like we're going to have Foo Fighters move away from the chair. So unfortunately, Lawyer is going to be sent back to the manor.
Yes, and the Soul Weaver has gotten a chip damage in on the Mercenary, which will go away because the cipher is just popped. Now remember, FNE H2O survivors just need to get one survivor out of the gate, and they will win this round. Even though this is a 2-person endgame, there is still a chance for anything to happen.
For sure, and we need to watch out for the tram there.
Oh.
No! Oh dear.
The Mercenary takes a hit from the tram. Oh no.
Oh no, okay. That was a close one, but yeah, unfortunately, Mercenary did get hit by the tram and is going to go down here, but Gardener is close by with the Soul Weaver here. Unfortunately, dungeon isn't over at this area, but we are going to be using that recall. Oh!
Yes, so the recall is in play, but we are going to use a chip hit to go ahead and knock it down. Gardener does take a web, and she does go down. I believe she was able to heal the Mercenary, who was already at halfway. We're going to go ahead and pick up that Gardener, try to go ahead and bring her closer, just so because the Mercenary has gotten right next to the dungeon. Very good to just try and slug this out so that neither of them can escape.
Yeah, let's utilize that Giant Claw. Oh! Unfortunately, even Giant Claw can't save you in this scenario. It does look like Gardener struggled free. She's going to be able to go to that 2-story, but did eat a couple of webs, so she's a little bit slowed down here.
Yes, and it looks like the Mercenary is in the air, both Gardener and Mercenary in the area. The Soul Weaver is right on the way, able to hit the Gardener just before recall goes in, and she does have Mercenary over by that gate, which she's teleporting to right now. Gardener, I believe, still has self-heal available, but Mercenary does not.
Yeah, for sure, and it is a tricky situation because Mercenary has no items to utilize and gets down to a detention hit.
Yeah, that is going to be very unfortunate. We'll see if the Gardener is able to heal up before the Soul Weaver is able to get to her. The Gardener looks like she will be healing up very shortly. All she has to do is just try to out-kite the Soul Weaver as the Mercenary bleeds out. We do have detention up, but that doesn't matter because the Gardener is injured, and she will go down once the Soul Weaver manages to land a hit on her.
It does look like Gardener is doubling back towards this Mercenary who could be priming this heal.
Oh yes, the Mercenary is at about 90% now, and the Gardener did just recall. Very well played by the Soul Weaver. That was very well done.
Excellent 4K, congratulations. to Fafa for getting a 4-man elimination and thus a tie for our round one.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Fantastic gameplay on both sides so far. The hunters have done a fantastic job pressuring this map, pressuring the survivors, knowing how to use warp and teleport respectively to instill some genuine fear and unpredictability, not letting up on those ciphers, especially that one the lawyer was decoding. And to the best of the survivor efforts, unfortunately, the hunters were just able to outplay them each time just through their sheer mastery of these hunters.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd like to issue a formal apology for bringing up the tram. I said I didn't manifest it, but I put out a warning, so maybe it's not my fault. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. So sorry for that. Uh, you know what? It definitely builds up to the intensity. Like Juliet has mentioned, there aren't as much hazards when it comes to this game, but Ever Sleeping Tram is one of them. So it's interesting to see how it played out, not once, but twice.
Oh yeah, it definitely did have some game changing effects, especially at endgame. Very unfortunate that the mercenary got caught right as the Soul Weaver was there. It really, I think, did do some damage to the survivor coordination because they did manage to outplay the tension. And honestly, had that tram not connected, they could have definitely kited for a lot longer, potentially even gotten at least one person out. But that definitely was used to the best of the ability of the Soul Weaver, and the Soul Weaver was able to counter that recall very well with those well-timed chip hits through the webs.
Yeah, for sure. Respect to Spirit Snow for the timing on the recalls. It's always worth trying to conjure up when the hunter is closing in on you because of course even if your recall doesn't quite connect, your progress in the conjuring up of it is carried over to the next time you try and summon it. So I think especially there are some instances where despite getting injured by the Soul Weaver, she was able to use the recall once again to not just tank hits, but it still buys more time. It forces the hunter to be a little patient if they don't want to hit you out of it. And it does kind of work into your favor too, because the more successful recalls that you get, the longer your cooldown for your next recall is gonna be. So I always think it's worth trying to utilize it whenever you have the opportunity to. Of course, when it comes to chip hit hunters like the Soul Weaver, there are countermeasures to eliminate that recall to begin with, of course, with your chip hit and then basic attack. But you got to work with what you have, and I think both teams did a great job with it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm very glad with the gameplay we've seen on both the survivor side and the hunter side alike. Both matches have been so strong. Really good coordination, really good gameplay, mind games from the hunters. And that is the best thing about a tie in round one is that we're going to get to see these two incredible teams go on to round three automatically. Sometimes you have really great teams, and unfortunately, one of them gets eliminated in 2 rounds, but we get to automatically go to round three here. And we are getting into ban picks for round two. We are going to be subbing in FNE. Killer Boss is going to be hunting now instead of Hawk. And they have also banned Arms Factory as their map so far.
Yeah, it's nice to take this map out of the equation. It's definitely one of our smaller maps. And of course, I'm no stranger to manifesting the bigger maps. I definitely think that it would be more fun to have a bigger map, especially with our global bans kicking in, as well as our first hunter bans for the survivor factions. It kind of narrows down the pool a bit, as well as the possibility, like raising the possibilities at the same time. So I'm really looking forward to round two, especially now that the teams are tied so far. So we're really going to have to keep doing our best, like these teams have been, and I'm just so hyped.
We'll get even more hyped, Mira, because once again, you've predicted something, you've gone ahead and manifested the Moonlit River Park as our second map. Bethany is going to be hunting first on it. This is a very fun map to play on. Lots of wide open spaces, as well as some very tight kiting areas, as well as two halves of the map being split up between two bridges. There's just a lot of potential for map control and cipher pressure and rotation here.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to how the teams are able to utilize their terrain. Of course, there is that roller coaster to work with. That one, can it be considered as like a paid actor if the survivors turn off the stops? I think so. But depending on the way that they spawn or rotate, we can definitely have that in the survivor's favor. But of course, there are countermeasures depending on the hunters you're playing. I know I did mention that we won't be getting hunters like Goatman in this tournament for this season, but I don't know about y'all, but I think it's so funny when Goatman just uses the cage on the roller coasters so the survivors like fall out of the sky. It's so funny.
Oh yeah, when Goatman first came out, um, me and some of me and some friends, including Bones, who will be commentating tomorrow, we messed around with Goatman in Moonlight River Park to see what he could do, and it's always just so much fun to just goof off and like beta test what a hunter is and isn't capable of. But we do have our first survivor bans going into the ban picks. Coordinator and Mercenary have both been banned. No surprises there. We're just going right out the gate trying to get two of the strongest rescues out.
Yeah, absolutely. And Merc does make for more terrain covered with those elbow pads. It does, however, leaves Priestess up in the open if we uh if we're able to utilize her. Unfortunately, Gardener and Acrobat did get taken out of the equation due to the global bans. It's kind of a shame. I feel like Acrobat is really fun on Moonlit River Park, especially on that fourth stop area, but there are alternatives to him as well. Uh, we saw in a previous match how well Patient can utilize his hooks around the fourth stop and the nearby ruins. Um, since I'm really good at manifesting these things, Fire Investigator is really great on the fourth stop as well, or just the first and fourth, regardless. I definitely saw it in, I think, a recent tournament. I can't remember which team utilized the Fire Investigator because I feel like many players kind of went ham. But it's really fun to be able to utilize your airbags to block off the hunter and force them to either go around or break your airbag.
Oh yeah, for sure. The Fire Investigator has been a very fun character to watch slowly creep into the meta recently. He's been getting used fairly frequently, and not too frequently yet, but I think once we get that buff in play in especially in official tournaments, we'll be seeing a lot more of him. Uh, it will. I think it'll ultimately come down to who the first two survivor picks are to see what kind of strategy is coming here. The first two bans being rescues definitely feels like they're trying to push them to lock in a rescue for the first round, or they run the risk of having a rescue banned. But we are actually going to go ahead and select the novelist and psychologist for our first lock-ins, as well as ban the opera singer for round two.
Yeah, that opera singer ban is definitely well deserved. We definitely want to take hunters like opera singer off the table as soon as possible, especially on such a big map that she can traverse through so quickly in her shadow realm. I'm really interested in this novelist pick. Uh, Especially as our first lock in. It's almost a shame when the really interesting picks come out first thing because they do end up in the global bans later on. But because you can do so much with Novelist, especially when your team is as synergized as H2O, it's going to be so funny to see how they work with the little switcheroo that he does. I'm interested to see how many maybe pallet stuns we're going to squeeze in or canceling out abilities. I'm sure a lot of us have seen those clips where the novelist will force a hunter to go back into their warp. We have been seeing warp utilized a lot in this tournament as well as just matches in general, so there's really a lot of possibilities there.
Oh yeah, there are definitely some very good chances here. The psychologist, she has that remote healing, which can be used very, very well on Moonlight River Park. Um, we have the novelist as well. He that like you were saying, he has all those utilizations with his new Switch. Now that he's finally able to be played in tournament, we've seen him used for some very surprising things, some very powerful things. But speaking of powerful, we've gone ahead and banned the Aeroplanist, who is a very strong survivor on a map like this. And we've locked in the Seer, who is just always a very strong survivor in general.
Absolutely. Like Juliet has pointed out before, when you're able to protect your teammates remotely, that can really come in clutch. And it does look like we're going to be getting our next ban in as well. This is going to be First Officer.
Very interesting to go ahead and use 3 out of 4 bans for rescues. It does open up the it did open up the team to be able to select whichever survivors they'd wanted. They'd built up a pretty strong team, but they still don't have a rescue pick just yet. We'll see whether or not they pick that rescue now. They do have they have gone ahead and selected the Gravekeeper. Really, no surprises there. He is a very popular pick, especially in the NAU region. Usually, you'll see him picked about as frequently as Mercenary and First Officer around here. Really, no surprise we decided to go ahead and pick him for this round.
Absolutely, and I definitely appreciate the possibilities that you can have with the shovel, not just for rescuing and getting to the chair on time, but for kiting as well. If we preemptively drop those pallets, like we've been seeing some survivors doing, it always works well. Not just for our knee-jerk reflex carriers, but for Gravekeeper who can kind of tuck himself underneath these pallets.
Gravekeeper is very useful, and especially with that rework he's gotten fairly somewhat recently, not too long ago, that rework that allows him to have 2 shovels and be able to use them until he gets to a run out point. It has extended his versatility a lot more. You're able to shovel down multiple times, get that distance in, as well as taking more than just the 2 hits that a normal shovel would get you.
Absolutely. Oh, and another thing about Gravekeeper that we could possibly anticipate is that if we are going to be seeing some basement chairs once again, we saw it in both halves of our round one. Gravekeeper is able to drop down into the basement with the shovel, so there's always that option as well.
Oh yeah, and bringing that up, you're absolutely right. And especially on Moonlight River Park, that really comes in handy because
Mhm.
from what I remember, his drop down areas usually tend to be on the outside of the buildings, and the uh, basement spawns are inside the big top and inside the 2 story. And the Gravekeeper is able to jump in through the outdoor area while the hunter might be watching the stairways.
Absolutely.
We are getting personas ready and we are getting our hunter ready. There are a lot of potentials for hunters around here. I get the feeling we might be anticipating a gamekeeper. Gamekeeper tends to be very popular on Moonlit, especially if the opera
Mm.
singer is not available. We could also see a wheel. We did see a wheel in a earlier match. Did very effectively on the Moonlit River map. And once you have warp into play, you can play as several different characters. If someone wants to bring in a hermit again, or if someone wants to bring that disciple. I know I keep bringing her up, but I would just like to see her.
No, same here. Absolutely. I would love to see some Disciple. I'd love to see some Geisha as well. I feel like she's really fun on this map, especially with maximizing your reach in terms of distance and getting across from one side of the map to another. Or if the survivors are able to utilize the roller coaster, if you can't hit them off, you can always catch up to them.
Absolutely. And we do actually have our personas built. We have borrowed time on everybody but Seer, who is the only one with broken windows. And then everyone else but the Gravekeeper has Flywheel, and Gravekeeper will be bringing our single tie for the match. And we do have our Hunter locked in. It's going to be a Shadow. And she does have trump card and detention prepared for us today.
For sure. Really solid choice. Oh, you ban one and you get the other. We are going to be seeing Ivy. It's always great to be able to see how, like, the inner workings of an Ivy player's mind. I'm really excited to see how we're going to be utilizing the Yithian as well. I think in the few Ivy matches we have seen in this tournament so far, the reach of this hunter is just like phenomenal, even on such a big map. But if you do end up getting rotated, it can definitely stunt your reach a little more or force you to double down on your multitasking.
Oh, for sure. And we do have a very solid team for Cypher Rush, which is something that the Shadow is countered by. Only the Gravekeeper has a full decoding debuff of 15%. The Novelist, I believe, still gets his decoding debuff about 10% after he's gotten halfway across the cipher. He does have a 10% boost if the cipher is under 50%. And then the Seer and the Psychologist both don't have decoding debuffs. So it will come down to just the hiding, making sure you can prevent the Shadow from getting all of that distance. But we are going to go ahead and get into our map spawns. We have Novelist in the 2-story, Seer in the big top. We have Psychologist at first stop and Gravekeeper at third stop. Pretty evenly spread out throughout the map. And we do have Shadow spawning in over by the working carousel bridge.
Yeah, definitely a lot of survivors to choose from, especially getting sandwiched in between two. We have that Gravekeeper able to turn off that second stop, and we are going to be moving into the first half of round 2 with our H2O survivors up against our FNE Hunter. My name is Mima, and I am with Juliet for commentary. Good luck to both teams.
All right, and we are going to go ahead and get right into it. We do have our Shadow immediately breaking off from the Yith, trying to locate our first survivor to infect. We are heading down to the Psychologist who is over by first stop. We are going to go ahead and infect her and bring that Obstracon into play as we continue to try to build corruption on the Psychologist.
Ooh, and we do land one of those scares in for this Psychologist.
She is currently about 70%, but the Yith is going to move on to the big top to go and infect the mercenary, and the main body is going to follow right behind.
Yeah, for sure. We do have a new target here. Oh, it looks to be the Seer. We are going to get another scare. Two? Ooh. We can see that Killer Boss is not afraid to swing at these pallets. But we are going to be having the Seer utilize the slide, yay, to get to this ruins area. Good call on preemptively dropping the pallet.
Yes, the main body is finally caught up with the Yith, and the use of an owl to just go ahead and circumvent a hit as the Seer continues to kite around this tight kiting area just in front of the big top. Oh, but a flywheel just then. Oh, and a Terror Shock is actually going to counter that flywheel as the Seer goes over the pallet. That is going to give the Hunter a bit more of catch-up time as she goes to chair the Seer for the first time. 5 ciphers still remaining.
Yeah, and speaking of ciphers, unfortunately, the Psychologist was forced off of our 4th stop. And this does force our Gravekeeper to be on the move now. Oh, but unfortunately, he is with wanted order, so Ivy is going to intercept him.
Very, very well done. The Psychologist actually goes ahead and rescues the Seer, so we don't have Tide Turner in play, but we do have some distance as the Hunter needed to go ahead and teleport in the interim. The Seer is going to go ahead and try to kite over closer to that broken bridge, but the Yith is going to go ahead and try to intercept him using that scare on him as we continue to try and build up corruption.
Yeah, we are going to teleport through the Ostracon. The downside of playing Seer is, especially after you've expended your first owl, it's going to be really hard to accumulate it. But we are going to get max corruption and down this Seer for a second time.
Yep, and the Yith is going to go ahead and detract from the body, moving down back towards the big top side of the map as the Seer gets chaired right next to it over by that ruins area. Novelist is in the area. Nobody currently has any injuries, but the seer is at half as the Yith infects the psychologist, still chipping away at that fourth stop, Cypher Beshi. And we are going to have the Gravekeeper in the area to go ahead and rescue. The Yith did. Oh, but we will use Tide, but get that last hit on that Seer. He will be going down once that runs out.
Yeah, thankfully this Tide Turner does buy some more time for some extra decoding, but Ivy is still on top of things, trying to get the Novelist off this big top cipher.
And it
I'm
looks
not
like we
gonna
will
lie.
teleport.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, I'm not gonna lie, I definitely mistook the Novelist for being the Gravekeeper due to the skin. I'm so unfamiliar with the S tier.
Hey, don't worry about it. I called the Seer mercenary, and he was banned first, so you don't have to worry about a thing today.
All part of the plan. It does look like we are going to be having a first hit on this Gravekeeper, who did utilize a shovel, but now we're moving that Yithian into the Novelist, once again disrupting this circus tent cipher.
Ooh, and with an expertly timed scare that will put the Novelist at max corruption, he will be taking a hit. The Shadow is already at full presence, and with 2 ciphers remaining, the pressure is on for both sides.
Absolutely. We are going to be seeing the psychologist use her whistle on the Gravekeeper to get him back at full health, but that Yithian is going to ignore the Gravekeeper and take Ivy over to the psychologist.
Yes, and the psychologist is going to go ahead and transfer away from that God-type area down into get a pallet stun, but she won't get a pallet stun. She attempts to, but unfortunately that pallet will not go down fast enough to avoid getting the hit. Everyone
Loves that
is
red.
now... Oh, yeah.
Sorry, I was just gonna say, I love that red light trick.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, this increases the corruption on the healing survivors. We're gonna take the opportunity to hit the Gravekeeper, and now all of our team is at half health.
Yeah, that is not a good position to be in. You do not want to be in this position against a Shadow. I will say they do at least have an advantage of a bigger map, but the Shadow is doing a very effective job of camping this map and pressuring the ciphers and the survivors. This is looking like it could potentially be a snowball situation.
Yeah, and if we are going to continue onto this psychologist, utilizing the blink to down her before she can get that vault.
Very nicely done from the Yith. From the Shadow. Very well done. I think that's our second blink utilized, and Trump card is still in effect, so she can go ahead and swap whenever she's ready. Meanwhile, the Yith is going to go ahead and chase after that Gravekeeper and down him even. We now are forcing the Novelist to go ahead and rescue the psychologist as we chair the Gravekeeper.
For sure, yeah, no opportunity to decode at all. But fortunately enough, the Novelist was able to be healed by the Gravekeeper. We're going to focus on the psychologist and her cipher here.
Yeah, and it looks like she was... Oh, sorry.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it looks like the psychologist was rescued before half, as well as the Gravekeeper, so they still each have 1 cherry each, and the Novelist still has plenty of chips to go, but we haven't been able to decode any ciphers as we are trying to focus on destroying those obstracons as the psychologist goes down in the corner.
And we are once again going to return to our circus tent to disrupt the decoding on the cipher. That max corruption allows a hit on the Novelist, but we're going to continue to pursue him. Oh, we're going to move targets to the Gravekeeper, who did open up a cipher on the cipher bridge.
Yeah, but it looks like right as he got infected, he jumped off that cipher to go ahead and use a shovel. He does have quite a bit of that shovel left, about halfway of it, or a little bit under half, but it will go ahead and be able to use 1 last time or so as he continues to try and decode, just trying to rush those ciphers as everyone heals up and moves towards the cipher pressure.
We are going to scare this Novelist off the cipher just before it's popped, but we did do a beautiful flywheel to get past this pallet. Oh, and another Terror Shock!
That is an incredible hitbox moment. I mean, that angle from that hit to go ahead and Terror Shock over the pallet was absolutely phenomenal. You can tell this is someone who really knew this puncher in particular.
Yeah, absolutely. You can tell that Killer Boss has a great mastery on the shadow, and I definitely think that she has one of the surprisingly bigger hitboxes as well. I recall my friend did a compilation of the Hunter hitboxes on TikTok, and I was surprised to see that Ivy was kind of up there in terms of size for hitboxes.
Oh yeah, there's just so much that makes her one of the strongest hunters in the meta currently. I mean, we
Mhm.
even are seeing her being played with those nerfs recently added to her character, and even with those nerfs on a big map, which she usually has difficulty on, we're seeing very good cipher pressure, very good map pressure, just overall very good control of the situation.
Ooh, and we're able to get a scare on the psychologist, downing her once more. We do have Ostracons on both of our last possible ciphers, with our novelist and gravekeeper at half health. Oh, beautiful blink to get this novelist down. He was doing his due diligence trying to get behind the pallet, but unfortunately, that blink is going to get him down and chaired.
And it looks like the Yit has infected the Gravekeeper as he has been trying to rescue trying to heal up the psychologist, but he is almost down. The psychologist is nearly healed, but a terror shock will send the Gravekeeper down. The psychologist has used self heal, that will be an end, and this is the third four-man elimination in a row for these teams. What a phenomenal display!
Yeah, really incredible. It's so great to see everybody push all the way up until the end, even when things are looking grim for your faction. I love that they really did their best to give it their all, and they were communicating with one another even through the game. Uh, yeah, and tried to stay on top of things. But of course, the strength of Ivy is that there is so much reach with the Yithian being able to teleport to these Ostracons and the delay before you're even able to dismantle them. And on such a big map, too, it really put them at a disadvantage to have the last bit of the ciphers all on one side.
Mhm. I believe you actually mentioned that before, what a disadvantage that can be when everything is all on one side. And that really just proves it now, is that, especially against a character like the Shadow, who does need those small spaces to have more control. I mean, out of the two maps that are considered bigger and used in tournament, Moonlight River Park and Lakeside Village, Moonlight River is at least the one that has less of a disadvantage for her. And even so, you could still see the way she was able to just pressure those ciphers. That's why Cipher Rush and First Kite is such a strong counter to the Shadow. Once she's able to eliminate that first survivor, that puts her at a significant advantage. And you just need to try to decode your ciphers as fast as you can. Otherwise, you do run the risk of snowball.
Absolutely. Definitely something to look out for. Uh, and speaking of which, we are going to be moving into our second half of round two. Uh, the pressure now falls on H2O. I do recall that in the last match, the pressure was on FNE, but I'm really excited to see how H2O responds to this four-man elimination. Uh, and we are going to be taking Prisoner and Gardener off the table right away due to them being globally banned after being our first picks for the survivors in the last round.
Oh yes, these are two very strong survivors. As we can see, the Gardener has been globally banned by both teams. She is a very strong survivor, very good at taking hits, and the Prisoner is always very useful if we are going to be seeing a Shadow this time again. He is one of her most powerful counters currently, being able to decode two ciphers at once, as well as being able to use those short stuns, try to avoid those hits, try to get away from her. So overall, yeah, this very useful bans going forward, but that does mean we still have plenty of powerful survivors to choose from.
Absolutely. And speaking of powerful survivors, we are gonna go ahead with our bans. You know what? In hindsight, I see why Priestess wasn't banned in the last match. due to the Ivy pick. But
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Speaking of, we actually will see a priestess ban this time from H2O, who is now hunting. Effany is not surviving. Remember, H2O does need to get a 4-man elimination just to tie the round. If any survivors escape, that will be the round to FNE, who will be in the lead by point and round advantage. Priestess and Embalmer are two bans. It makes a lot of sense. We're trying to get rid of survivors who can gain significant distance. The Priestess has all those portals that can take her all the way across those bridges. And she also has that global portal, which is always obnoxious to deal with when you're the hunter. And meanwhile, the Embalmer, he can go ahead and coffin you from anywhere on the map. So if you're downed, as long as he's able to see you, he's able to resurrect you all the way on the other side if you use your coffins right.
For sure, and that's definitely going to require a little bit of rotation and teamwork to be able to record all of these appearances on such a big map. But uh, luckily, Embalmer is taken out of the equation. I do see why, especially with such strong areas that you can plant this coffin, especially on the two-story. Two stories next door neighbor is the Glodkite ruins, of course. So even if you were to theoretically chase an embalmer out of the two-story, there's still that to work with. You could transition over to the first stop, which honestly, it would be fun to see not just the roller coaster, but I do believe that in our Moonlit River Park matches, we haven't quite seen as much of the opposite side of the map, the one with the two-story and the God kite that I'm talking about. That would definitely be fun. So I'm gonna manifest that too.
All right, let's see if your powers of divination work again. Hopefully, we'll be able to see that fire investigator. But for right now, we do have our first two survivor lock-ins for H2O. They've for FNE, they've gone ahead and locked in Aeroplanist and Painter. Aeroplanist is lethal on this map. He's able to gain significant distance with those jetpacks. Painter as well has those very powerful stuns, and that recent buff allows him to get those paintings ready in a shorter amount of time. And we are, to no one's surprise, banning that Hermit. We had a very dedicated Hermit main plane for H2O, and we unfortunately will not be seeing him again, but we will be getting the first officer banned as our rescue.
This definitely opens up the floor to other picks, such as the mercenary. And of course, we do have the Gravekeeper as an option as well. We were lucky enough to see him in the last match, being able to utilize the shovel even just to kite and also deal with the corruption.
Oh yeah, the Gravekeeper is always a good pick. I mean, you can definitely see he is still. There's a reason he is still very popular in our region, especially. He definitely useful in pitch, and the cutoff to reuse the shovel is always very useful. We saw that used to perfection in the last round. A very good kiting front and shovel use from the Gravekeeper's end. We are going to actually lock in the Acrobat now. No rescue pick yet, which does open up one more rescue ban should the hunter desire it. But it looks like we are focusing on a team that is all about kiting and gaining distance.
Absolutely. It's really fun to be able to see the acrobat in his home base here. I think there's lots of really fun jumping off points, especially with so much elevation as well. Uh, you can make for so much distance as well as a lot of kiting opportunities in that last stop if acrobat were to spawn there or first stop as well. That's always an option.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of utilization of the Acrobat in this area. A lot of really good tight kiting areas. If we do end up in that two-story God kite or just in two-story in general, he can prove to be pretty uh, troubling there. But we actually are going to get the Gravekeeper banned this time. But instead of locking in a rescue, we're going to go ahead and lock in the Cheerleader as our final survivor. Going without a rescue for this match, that's a very interesting choice.
For sure, but it is going to be exciting to be able to have such strong support on this team, especially with the cheerleader factored in. It will definitely be helpful if we want to reuse that jetpack or those paintings or to negate that cooldown. It's a little bit harder with Acrobat, if not quite possible, but at the same time, there's always that strength in being able to cheer for your teammates and give them that speed boost, especially to transition or make distance from the hunter. And of course, there is the possibility of stacking up those cheers and allowing them to pick themselves up.
Oh yeah, the cheerleader has a lot of versatility, a lot of utilization. One of the strongest support characters in the game currently. She does also have the strongest decoding debuff out of this team, but everyone else does pretty okay. Acrobat is always has the exit gate debuff, which don't have to worry about till end game. But Aeroplanist has a slight decoding buff, not anything too big, but every bit helps, especially on a big map like this, and especially considering we don't know what hunter we're about to face.
I'm really eager to see what sort of persona webs they're going to be bringing. They really have to pull off all the stops if they want to ensure that they uh, try and get the best outcome for their team. It's going to be really interesting to see since we don't have a designated rescuer who, if anybody, is going to be bringing Tide.
Oh yeah, that'll be definitely be an interesting choice for sure. We do have such strong kiting survivors. It looks like we are going to try to focus more on the kiting aspect than the rescuing aspect, um, which does make a lot of sense, especially if we're anticipating maybe something like a shadow, just trying to get that decoding in where we can. And when it comes to the cheerleader, even though she does have that decoding debuff, her speed boosts and her supports are just, I think, well worth sacrificing that extra couple of percents on the Cypher Rush, especially when other people are able to decode without any worries.
Absolutely, and it's really nice to be able to have these self-sufficient survivors. Most of these characters can definitely cover a lot of terrain. Being able to use your jetpack, your bombs, as well as your motivate to cheer yourself with the speed boost and transition from one area to another, as well as to kind of gain some distance, even if you are in an open area. Of course, there's always that danger if you're going from one side of the map to another. If you're not using that roller coaster, you're gonna have to use that bridge. And when you have uh, these aspects of your kit that can help you traverse through here safer with a hunter on your tail, that's always a plus.
Oh, for sure. And it looks like we do have our personas in for the survivor team. Tide will be being brought in on the Aeroplanist. He is going to be bringing Broken Windows instead of Borrowed Time. The Painter is also bringing Broken Windows as well as Flywheel. And then both the Acrobat and Cheerleader have Borrowed Time, with the Acrobat bringing but both of them bringing Flywheel as well. And it looks like our hunter selection is going to be the Evil Reptilian. Always a treat to see him brought out with that lethal crash in play and those extra buffs he's gotten over the past couple of months. He does pose a threat on such an open map like Moonlit River.
Definitely. It definitely works as a great countermeasure to these survivors as well, who cover so much ground at such a fast pace.
Oh, absolutely. And it looks like he has brought detention and insolence. Definitely do not blame him for wanting to bring insolence. That is a very powerful weapon for the reptilian. Much like the Soul Weaver we saw earlier, these are hunters that rely on getting half presence in order to do some extra damage. He isn't necessarily a chip hunter, but he does have that lethal crash, where anyone who is in its way will take damage. And with a recent buff, anyone who is in his way, it doesn't just select the nearest survivor like it used to. Everyone can take a hit of damage, and he has no attack recovery attached to it, so that can make him very dangerous very quickly.
Ooh, I'm really excited about this hunter's spawn selection. Landing in the second stop is really gonna cut either of the Aeroplanist and Cheerleader's possibility of turning off the stop. And there's so many characters to choose from, especially when you have the reach like Evil Reptilian. But now we are going to be moving on into the second half of round 2 with our FNE survivors up against our H2O Hunter. My name is Mima and I am joined by Juliet for commentary. Good luck to both teams.
And we are going to go ahead and start right off by heading towards that 2-story.
Ooh, the painter actually went out right away and kind of hid behind these banners. Of course, the trail does give him away, but I thought that was a really fun maneuver.
Oh yeah, that was very clever on the painter's part. He is able to go ahead and get his first painting started. He is working well on it. Remember, he only has to get 2/3 of it, and he already has that first painting all set. Painting it all the way for good measure as he continues to kite around the outside of the 2-story as the reptilian continues to try to hunt him down using that blood trail.
Hmm. Now we are going to be utilizing that painting as the painter transitions to the second story. We're gonna creep to use the slow vault and get that knee jerk in, but with the insolence, we are gonna be at first presence.
Exactly, and it looks like we do have our Hunter's trait loaded in. It's going to be warp, and no trait switch, so no excitement, no avoiding that. But we are going to use lethal crash because of that insolence, and the painter will be going down for that first chair. Now remember,
Wow.
painter does have the skill where he doesn't have the halfway point, so you can rescue him over half, and he won't automatically be eliminated.
Yeah, absolutely. Being able to guarantee those 3 chairs buys a lot of time, but we're gonna go right ahead and use warp to get to cheerleader.
Yes, it looks like she is going to be able to dash away from that lethal crash, sending her down into that cooldown and slow speed. But she is going to go back to her cipher. Well, we do have, it looks like the aeroplanist in the area to try and go for that rescue. Remember, he is our only carrier of Tide Turner today.
Ooh, so we're going to utilize a bit of the jetpack to get this rescue in. Of course, Aeroplanist is going to move away, and the painter is going to transition back into the ruins here. We're not going to land this lethal craft this time, but we're going to drop this pallet to close off the route. Preemptively dropping the pallet to get that knee-jerk reflex speed boost.
Yes, and it looks like the painter is doing a very good job of kiting around this God Kit area. Look, you've gone ahead and manifested something again. We do have 2 ciphers decoded, which means dungeon has been revealed. I cannot see where it is right now, but painter was able to avoid that lethal crash as he continues to kite around this area. Just missing that charged hit, unfortunately.
Yeah, close call to not get hit through. And we're going to narrowly avoid the lethal crash again, going over to the corner to get as much space away from chairs as possible.
Yes, and this will be the second down for the painter. I do believe he was rescued past half, but remember, he doesn't have to worry about that. He is able to take a maximum of 3 chairs no matter what. And it looks like we have the cheerleader in the area to perform this next rescue. Remember, the cheerleader and acrobat are the only 2 with borrowed time. Oh no, the cheerleader, everyone has borrowed time except for the painter. But, oh! Speaking of which, that borrowed time comes right in handy as we're able to get a 4-man endgame right as we down the cheerleader.
Ooh, and we're gonna go aggressive and go for our cheerleader next. Excellent motivate to get away from that lethal crash. We are gonna self-inspire to be able to use another motivate, but Painter is unfortunately going to get sent back to the manor now.
Yes, and it looks like the aeroplanist was able to get that exit gate opened up right away.
With a warp right. Oh! Ooh! Unfortunately, Cheerleader wasn't able to make it to the gate in time. Regardless of self-inspiring, unfortunately, there was only one motivate to utilize. So we are going to be getting a 2-man escape and 2-man elimination. Congratulations.
Yes, very, very well done. This does put FNE in the lead now. They are now leading a total of, I believe that would be 17 to, uh, the total right now is 17-7, which is a very good lead to have. Wait, no, 12-7, I believe it is. Yes. My bad. Sorry. I can't math today.
No, no worries at all. I can't math ever, so you're all good.
But yeah, very well done. That painter had an excellent kite, utilizing that god kite against the reptilian. And unfortunately, they were all able to gain distance so much that the reptilian was just not able to land those lethal crashes. They were just outside of the range of those, and that did buy them plenty of time to get that Cypher Rush going.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is going to put us into round three. I'm so excited, especially after we've gotten this tiebreaker match here.
Oh, for sure. And it looks like we do have a sub in for H2O. They're going to be subbing in Survivor Caramel for Adra, who had been playing lawyer and novelist these past two rounds. And we will not have any more map bans. We're just going to go ahead right into the map pick once teams are ready. Going into round three, we do have four global bans on each team. And we will be seeing potentially previously used maps again.
It would be interesting, though. I do believe we still have a couple of maps that we haven't quite seen yet for our season two. Um, let's see if we're gonna continue this pattern of manifestation. I'd love to see some Lakeside Village or perhaps some Leo's Memory.
Yes, I would honestly love to see Leo's Memory get brought in. It's a very fun map, one we've been seeing more and more frequently because it does offer some very strong utilization to try and counter some of the more popular hunters. It's been a notorious opera singer map since even back when she was as unstoppable and unnerved as she used to be. It was one of the most popular maps to pick to try and counter her. I would love to see it brought up again. I'd also love to see Lakeside. I do always love seeing Lakeside in play. And I mean, Chinatown is my favorite map. I am a bit biased. I would love to see Chinatown be brought in again.
For sure. And I'm glad that we've been able to see a lot of Chinatown as well in this tournament for you, Juliet. Um, is this a good time for me to say that despite me always manifesting the big maps, I personally don't like going into big maps or matches? Just like a random curveball as we wait to get into our ban and pick selection. Uh, trust that when I load into matches and I see the Moonlit River Park or the Lakeside Village as my map, I'm kind of like, oh, geez. I definitely pick my character accordingly. But at the same time, a lot of the times I don't end up reading the map correctly. Uh, so sometimes I'll think, oh, I thought we were on Leo's Memory, and we'll end up on like Red Church or something. It's not. I'll just get jump scared by the area selection or something. Or if it's a quick match, it's like, oh,
Yes, and it looks like we do have Hunter sub-ins for this final round. We have H2O Winter subbing in for H2O Eddie, and we have FNE Pomelo subbing in for FNE Killer Boss. So we're gonna get to see some completely new hunters, some completely new play styles. Very exciting overall to see how this is going to turn.
same here. And since we are moving into the round three, we're actually going to be getting even more bans, both globally and just in terms of Hunter. We're going to be taking two Hunters off the table this time. Uh, it's a shame that some of the characters that we first locked in as interestingly enough to be played. I'm sad we won't be able to see much more of the novelist, for example, but of course it does open up the possibilities for some survivors we haven't seen yet, just as long as they aren't banned too, of course.
Oh, for sure. There's a lot of possibilities throughout this third round, even with the eight survivor bands that are going to come in and the 200 bands that are going to come in. There's still so much that can be utilized, so much that can happen, especially since we just managed to manifest a Chinatown pick for round three. This is a very
Ooh.
fun map. As we've seen it just about every single round so far, pretty much. It's a very fun map to play on. Anything can happen between both survivors and hunters. It's a very fun map to kite on with those 2 stories, as well as a very fun map to try to hunt on, as well as you have that very good opportunity for map control.
Absolutely. I'm really interested in seeing how um I think I mentioned it prior, but I'm interested to see how they utilize the map while it's still there. I really enjoyed seeing the survivors being able to drop the pallets in advance, like right in front of them to go for the speed boost. Same with broken windows or knee jerk reflex on the window vaults, even on Moonlit. But when we're moving into Chinatown, a fun aspect of it is that many of the vaults are temporary. So it would be fun to see these get utilized and taken out of the equation as well.
Oh yeah, very good point bringing up those crumbling windows, Nima. Those can be absolutely nasty, especially in the hotel and over by those uh that sharing area right down over by that one gate. It's very tricky to go ahead and use. But usually one of my favorite things to do when I'm hunting over there is just whenever I share someone nearby, just go ahead and vault in and out just to break it to give myself a little bit of an advantage.
Yeah, for sure. That's definitely a fun strategy to go and see. Uh, except for when you're the survivors, of course. But I do like the placement of these temporary window vaults because many of them end up being so close to the chair. So you'll often see that if the hunter isn't going to go harass someone off of a cipher or pressure them into the rescue, you'll be seeing them vault back and forth. It's so fun to see and to get that out of the way because then the survivors won't be able to utilize it.
Yes, indeed. There are just a lot of factors to use on this map. All these vaulting areas, all those pallet spams, those 2 stories, especially when you have characters on the table like Toy Merchant, Priestess, who will probably get banned. Let's not kid ourselves. The Patient as well. A bunch of different survivors who can use those upper levels to their advantage, especially since those are in open areas. They do have those 2 story bridges, which you don't really see on other maps, which do provide a lot of utilization for both survivors and hunters alike.
Yeah, absolutely. Really good point there, Juliet. We are just getting things settled with both teams. Are you looking forward to seeing maybe any hunter picks or survivor picks as we move on into round three?
We still haven't seen that clerk. We haven't seen that disciple. I wouldn't mind seeing a shadow on Chinatown. She's actually one of my favorite hunters to see on Chinatown in particular. I do love watching her snowball on it, particularly when she gets to that. Once she starts pressuring the exit gates too, it gets really exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. And on a map like Chinatown, where there is such a clear view of both gates, ooh, I'm manifesting that gate war once again. I feel like depending on the match, we've had some pretty fun situations where, in the end, maybe there aren't all the serves up and running for the end game, so there's less people to work with. But I'm hoping for some high intensity gameplay, even if we do have all survivors up and running in the late game. In fairness, I do think Gate Wars are even more fun the less survivors are up and running. I think it's really a game of cat and mouse and trying to uh, predict one another because there's only so much you can do and only so much where you can hide as well. But that makes the results all the more exciting to get to.
Oh yeah, for sure. We do have. It looks like we do have H2O hunting first. They will be getting their survivor bans in shortly. Remember, we do have 4 global bans in play. This team in particular has Prisoner, Gardener, Aeroplanist, and Painter not on the map. They did actually do a pretty good job of picking some survivors that are fairly meta, some survivors that are a little bit off meta. So they still have a very wide pool of survivors to choose from.
Yeah, for sure. They're definitely going to have to take their lock-in time to its greatest potential, depending on who this hunter is going to be ruling out. But of course, it does give a little bit of hints as to who we could possibly be seeing as our hunter lock-in, as always. But even just thinking back on last match, like I see why we were able to take out ban out some rescuers. I see why we left the priestess up for grabs as well, based on our hunter picks.
Oh yeah, there's still plenty of options here. It will really just depend on who gets banned, who gets selected, kind of what to anticipate with these two hunters. Remember, we haven't seen either Pomelo or Winter play just yet, and with H2O hunting first, we'll get to see Winter in play. They are playing dual factions, so we will get to finally see them uh, play Hunter in this round and most likely play Survivor next round, which will be extremely exciting to see.
Yeah, props to all of you dual faction players out there. I have a lot of respect for you, especially in the tourney setting where you have to play matches back to back. I really admire that. Teach me your ways.
Oh yeah, dual faction is I think it can be definitely a double-edged sword. If you're skilled with both factions, that's definitely a plus to have such strong support in both rounds. But at the same time, playing back to back to back can get very draining, especially the longer a match goes on for.
For sure. Yeah, really well said. Uh, it does look like we are going to be getting our bands and picks shortly. I'm really excited to see who we get. My leg is literally
Yep.
like tap 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 it.
It looks like our first two bands are going to be Coordinator and Seer. And our first two picks are going to be Psychologist and Embalmer with Hermit and Shadow Band. Really, no surprises there. Two very strong hunters, two very strong survivors, both being banned and picked for a global ban should we go into overtime.
Yeah, for sure. Honestly, with the map into consideration, I can definitely expect to see maybe some hunters who can stunt their cipher decoding. On a map like Chinatown, we've seen it even just in this tourney alone, where you'll have the last couple of ciphers, or just the ciphers in general, really quite close to one another. I'm hoping that maybe we'll see a decoder to kind of take the countermeasure to speed up this cipher progress. But of course, it definitely depends on where we're going to spawn, how we're going to rotate, and where our first kite is going to take us and leave the cipher progress.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Both the Embalmer and Psychologist are very strong survivors to bring out. Embalmer is always useful being able to gain that distance with his coffins. Really makes no surprise why he's been picked. The same with the Psychologist. As we've been seeing, she's able to take plenty of hits, able to help heal her teammates when they need to do a rescue, and she is off in the remote area trying to decode. And of course, the Coordinator and Seer bands make complete and total sense as well. The Coordinator is a very strong rescue, only getting a debuff when someone's shared, and as well as having that really strong stun. And I mean, we've talked about the Seer at length today. He has that remote um, shield as well. It looks like we're trying to avoid and pick people who can work remotely while kiting and cipher progress happens.
Yeah, for sure. Uh, Sorry, one moment. I need to take a sip of water. But with that being said, make sure you, everybody in the chat, everybody participating, if you can hear me, be sure to stay hydrated and eat if you haven't already. I'm gonna go ahead and get some hydration. I'm so glad to have my water bottle out. I don't usually, but before the tournament started today, I put it in the freezer. I almost left it. I definitely would have, but I really lucked out today in terms of preparation.
Filled up a water bottle. The water bottle already started today at As it is, looking at it now, I'm about three-fourths of the way through it. I've been like trying to take like little sips in between. I'm sorry if any of my coughing has been catching on my mic recently. I'm trying very hard not to dry my throat out before the end of this. But we do have our final picks and bans. We've banned novelist and first officer, and we've locked in professor and mercenary. It looks like we are trying to take hits, trying to gain distance from that hunter, just trying to kite as best as we can and prolong those kites.
I'm thrilled to see the professor pick. We haven't quite seen the survivor form of Lucino this time around, so it's great to bring him out. I'm really looking forward to seeing how we utilize the scales in this match, not just from the professor himself, but also across the map, if any of these survivors are able to pick up.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You don't really tend to see the professor picked as often, but I definitely understand with that Gardner globally banned for both sides. You want to just, it looks like they are just trying to aim to tank as many hits as they possibly can. With that Seer ban, with the first officer ban, he does get that little bit of tide boost after he gets hit when under the watch's influence. And it, of course, the delayed action on the mercenary as well, which you can use those elbow pads to gain distance from a hunter as they're recovering from an attack. Overall, just very strong team build. It looks like we are just trying to absorb as many hits as we possibly can in order to escape the hunter.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely enjoy being able to have the psychologist in play. Even just in our last match, it's great that the psychologist is able to utilize that whistle to heal up our designated rescue in the team, and that can definitely come in clutch with a survivor like Mercenary with that shell shock hindering our healing speed for him. And of course, it does kind of in turn exchange healing speed for the psychologist as well, but it's a fair give or take.
Oh, absolutely. And it looks like we are locking in our hunter. It's going to be the breaking wheel. Now, he does tend to be a situational hunter at this point. Very much, I would compare him to the Night Watch in that they both have very similar maps they excel on. You'll tend to see these two picked most likely on Chinatown and Ever Sleeping, as they are very good situational maps for these hunters.
Absolutely. And we discussed the temporary vaults with the windows in this map, and I think that will definitely benefit a hunter such as Breaking Wheel because that's one of his biggest counters aside from Flywheel. If you're able to get on those window vaults, you can really loop him for filth.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there's a lot of potential on this map for a breaking wheel. Able to gain distance very quickly, able to break through all of those pallets that get spammed. The hotel pallet won't be an issue for someone like the breaking wheel. And as this is a team that, like we've been saying, can tank hits and gain distance, this is a very good counter for characters like the embalmer who is able to gain distance with those coffins, the mercenary who has that delayed damage, the psychologist who has that shield up. You can go ahead and use those chips from their spikes in order to do significantly more damage and just chip away at those hunter. So overall, this is a very good hunter choice for this particular composition.
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to seeing how much this wheel is going to pressure these survivors, especially in terms of decoding. Wherever you chaired on a map, the smaller the map is, the more reach this wheel is going to be able to have. And it definitely hinges a little bit more on how this first kite is going to go. Whoever is first chased really needs to watch out for the rest of their teammates, as well as how much they're going to be utilizing the terrain. Because, as Juliet has highlighted prior, once we get pallets and window walls out of commission here, there's really not much to work with. You're really going to have to rely on your items, your communication, as well as your uh, builds if you are taking the precautions of bringing in Flywheel, for example, another really great counter to the Breaking Wheel.
Oh yes, absolutely. There's just a lot survivors can do to try and counter the breaking wheel, just like the breaking wheel does come in with the counters to the survivors from the get go. And we do have our persona builds ready. We do have Tide being brought solely on the mercenary. We have broken windows being brought solely on the embalmer. Oh no, the psychologist also has broken windows. We have borrowed time on everybody but the embalmer, who is bringing flywheel along with the professor. And we do have our hunter um, persona. We have trump card and insolence. We do not have detention, but that is really not an uncommon thing with a breaking wheel to not have a detention build, though it could definitely come be a bit dangerous should the match be drawn out to an end game with more survivors.
Absolutely. We're making a little bit of said formation or like a little worm. And I'm excited to see if we're gonna go with chasing our professor first since we're spawning right next to him. But moving into the first half of round 3 with our FNE survivors up against our H2O hunter. My name is Mima and I am joined by Juliet for commentary. Good luck to both teams.
Absolutely. Good luck to everybody as the breaking wheel spawns right in that two-story mannequin building, immediately taking off into the restaurant, trying to just go ahead and locate a survivor for the start. We don't have tinnitus just yet. We are trying to locate our first survivor. It looks like we are heading towards the center where we do have the professor going to go ahead and take that first fight after a little bit of a delay.
Brilliant rotation, getting out of our initial spawn and circling back to where the hunter spawned. But now the professor is going to be having 2 chips on him, so Wheel is going to get out of wheel form.
And it looks like we did just miss that trap that we're trying to throw. We're trying to throw a second one at the professor as he goes into this hiding area behind the restaurant. Just going to go ahead and try to get him down. He does have those 2 spikes in him. So if they're able to land a hit, and they will land a hit, he's not able to defend himself with a shield just yet. The professor will be going down right away.
And now at this point in time, Blink has come online. It does kind of indicate at what point their ciphers are at. But being away from the rest of the team does help out, but not as much when you're up against the Breaking Wheel, who is going to go for our next target. Mercenary is going to move in, taking the window vaults over at the restaurant. At this point, we are buying a little bit of time so we aren't pressured to rescue too early.
And it looks like the wheel will go ahead and sabotage one of the elbow pads. And the mercenary does get a bit of chip damage in, but he is able to rescue the professor with his only damage, with the only use of Tide being utilized right now.
Yeah, for sure. Good call on the mercenary for using one of those elbow pads to get the wheel off his tail. But we are going to be seeing Wheel at max presence and utilizing that snap to get Professor down a second time.
Yes, it looks like the professor is going to be checked after before half. The first time rescued before half, so he does have one more chair to go. No one has Tide anymore, so the wheel is just going to move on. We do have the psychologist at full health. She might go ahead and try to get that mercenary filled up, but he is going to go ahead and take this fight now. We do have the embalmer cipher at about 3/4 of the way there. 2 ciphers already decoded with a dungeon reveal that looks like it's spawned in over towards the opposite side of the map, and the professor will be eliminated as we go ahead and continue to pursue that mercenary.
Now this mercenary is a chip hit away from getting downed and utilizing that snap to get mercenary down.
Overall, a very good map control from this breaking wheel. This is definitely a hunter who knows how to handle a wheel, especially how to use them on a map like Chinatown. We do have the embalmer in the area. Gonna go ahead and chase after him as we continue. He does have his coffin spawn further away on the map, as he does go ahead and take this kite into the restaurant.
Yeah, for sure, and it does look like our psychologist is closing in on the mercenary, and realizing this, the wheel does return to the chair. Can we get this rescue in before half? We can, but Psychologist is gonna go
Ooh.
down.
And that is very unfortunate for the psychologist because she does have that health bubble. She was not able to get it into play, but if she does get rescued, that will start to diminish and help heal her up as she gets rescued. Meanwhile, we do have two full spikes on the embalmer. He's not able to get out of those before the wheel can go find him again. Gonna go ahead and land a third spike on that embalmer and go ahead and knock. Oh, he's gonna flywheel in the nick of time.
And Mercenary is going to sneak in a rescue as Embalmer is chased. So we're gonna leave the Embalmer down, who isn't going to opt to rebirth right here, but our stress bubble for the Psychologist is kicking in.
And we do have the mercenary continuing to run. He was rescued, I believe, before half, so he does have some time. The Cypher's progress has kind of stagnated to about 2 Cyphers left. Everyone is being pressured very hard by the wheel. The wheel has excellent map pressure at the moment.
Yeah, and Wheel at max presence is no joke. Embalmer is going to utilize Exit Path to pick himself up, but Winter is gonna go and make sure that Embalmer is not safe.
Exactly. We still have that coffin in play, but if the embalmer is never chaired, we don't have to worry about it unless he decides to use it if he gets down to second time. Psychologist has fully healed. Oh dear! Right as she's able to rescue, she body blocks and takes that hit and goes down. As we continue to pursue the embalmer as he tries to decode. We are at 1 cipher remaining now.
Yeah, and we are going to see a trade switch to Abnormal, taking out the progress of this last cipher.
Oh, that honestly could change everything. Getting that cipher down, extending the time. The psychologist is currently down. The embalmer only gets a decoding debuff when he decodes with other survivors, which means we could be seeing a problem. We do have a chip on the mercenary. If he gets down here, he won't have that delayed damage, and we will be seeing him go down right away. Once he gets shared, that will be sending him back to the manor. And the embalmer still has that coffin in play, but both survivors are currently injured.
Sure, now we do have more progress back on this cipher, but unfortunately Wheel is going to force Embalmer off.
Yes, and it looks like yeah, looks like he did get caught. That is one of the downsides of Breaking Wheel is when you get to a tight enough area, he can get caught, and it could buy you some precious time.
For sure, and we're going to open up a new cipher over on the opposite side of the map with the Psychologist, but really great dodges from the Embalmer here. Unfortunately, we are going to get that second spike, trying to negate it with Flywheel, but not quite landing it. We are going to go for that rebirth due to already using our exit path, but of course, Wheel staying on top of things is going to locate that Psychologist.
Yes, and it looks like he's already on the way towards the psychologist. She is around the dungeon area, which could prove dangerous if they're able to prolong this long enough. But it looks like the wheel is trying to aim to get a few spikes in just to make sure that they can guarantee that they down her. That auto snap is not going to connect, but this snap will, and she will be going down, which means that the embalmer is now vulnerable to be chased as she tries to self-heal. But I believe she has already used exit path, it looks like, so if the embalmer does go down, that will be the end of this particular rat path, with another 4-man elimination for H2O.
Alright, and Bulbar is doing a good job staying in this area where there is that window vault to counter the wheel, but getting out of wheel form does land a second spike on the Embalmer, who is gonna go get down from the snap.
Yeah. Right, yes, that very well done to the breaking wheel. Very effective map pressure. The survivors did their best to try and tank those hits, try to rotate very well. Unfortunately, this was just a team that is very heavily countered by the breaking wheel, and he was able to use that to his advantage as he kept control over the map.
Yeah, absolutely. Really excellent work. And what a way to start off our round 3 strong.
Oh yeah, absolutely. We do have yes, this will definitely give H2O a bit of a point advantage. just as long as they are leading by just 1 point, if uh, FNE Hunter is able to secure at least a tie, I believe FNE will take it home.
Really exciting. I'm really eager to see how our FNE Hunter is going to be responding to this 4K, especially considering the point difference in win conditions here.
Absolutely. It's coming. These two teams have been so strong, neck and neck this entire time. It will be extremely interesting to see just how far they go, um, and just how this final match will go. If we do end up with a tie, that will go to FNE. If we get, I believe, uh, yeah, I think actually, yeah, they do just need that draw to secure the win. I believe uh, if more than two survivors escape, it will be going to H2O. So they do have their work cut out for them going into this round three.
Yeah, for sure. It looks like it's going to be for the requirements. FNE needs three eliminations to win, but H2O needs two escapes to win. We are going to be moving into the second half shortly. We're going to be handling our bans and picks. Uh, but yeah, with that in mind, we are going to be having our H2O survivors up against our FNE Hunter.
Yes, this is going to be very exciting. Remember, we haven't seen Pomelo hunt for FNE. We've had a different hunter each round for FNE, which has always been very exciting. We get to see something different with each hunter, a different new play style, a little bit of unpredictability each time. You don't know what exactly you're about to expect, but considering we have seen two 4-man eliminations in a row from the FNE hunters, uh, that does set the expectation pretty high for what Camilla will be able to do today.
Absolutely. And when we're moving into the bans and picks, since we're in round three, we are going to be having quite a bit of global bans. Unfortunately, the gardener, acrobat, novelist, and psychologist, respectively, are not going to be options due to being played and our first lock-ins in previous rounds. Of course, we will also be having even more survivor bans from the hunter, but in turn, we will be allowing these survivors to ban out two hunters.
Yeah, we do have quite a bit of bands to look forward to. Definitely want to figure out what kind of strategy we want to use on both sides. It all comes down to this match. Really, there is no overtime scenario at this point. The FNE Hunter needs to try to eliminate as many survivors as possible, and the H2O survivors need to just try and escape as much as they can. It really does just all come down to this. So it's going to be very interesting to see what kind of strategies these teams utilize on both sides to try and get the outcome they want.
Hmm. Now we are waiting for those bands to kick in, so I'm gonna take another opportunity to drink some water. This is your hydration reminder to everybody.
Oh, it's coincidentally enough, I just took a drink of my own water. Yeah, everyone stay hydrated. We're in the home stretch now. We just have this one last match to go, and then that'll be it for our Saturday matches, and we'll get right into Sunday, starting bright and early tomorrow. I believe our first match tomorrow is going to be at 12 p.m. That'll and then we just continue to have matches every 2 hours after that. So definitely make sure you have your water bottles handy. It's going to be a long one.
Yeah, have your water bottles, have your snacks. And yeah, it's gonna be 12 p.m. PST, right after the noon rank session for those of us
Oh,
in
perfect.
the EU. Mm-hmm.
And we do have our first two bands being Embalmer and Priestess. No surprise there. We did see how powerful an Embalmer can be, especially on this map. Really no surprise that we want to go ahead and ban him. And that psychologist as well, I mean, that priestess as well. This is a very good map for those portals, being able to override all those buildings in the area that don't have rooms inside of them, that are just kind of obstacles in your way. Overall, just very strong bans to try and keep survivors from escaping.
For sure. And we are going to be getting our hunter bands shortly as well before we lock in. I'm eager to see if we're going to be taking out our obvious, like, top dogs like Opera Singer and The Shadow. We've definitely seen quite a bit of them just today alone, but of course in every other tournament as well. I find that since they're so high on the meta, their usage just like is on a all-time high right now. But considering the recent adjustments for both of them, uh, it does allow for some of our interesting hunter picks like we've been seeing in this tournament so far as well.
Oh, for sure. There are just a lot of potentials for these matches. Just so many potentials. As we were like discussing, there's just so many hunters that do well on this map. We've seen a lot of reptilian picks on this map. We've seen quite a few wax artist picks on this map. Of course, the opera singer and the shadow are always well known. I tend to see Clerk played fairly often on this map, as well as as we've seen Breaking Wheel and Night Watch as well. There's just so much potential for hunters, and especially it looks like we are going to go ahead and lock in Gravekeeper and Little Lucky Guy. I can't tell if that's Lucky Guy or Little Girl that we're locking in, but we are going to go ahead and also Hunter ban the opera singer and shadow for Hunter, as well as the antiquarian for Survivor.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really eager to see which LG we're going to be getting because we have gotten neither LG, be it Little Girl or Lucky Guy. I feel like we've seen Lucky Guy in tournaments here and there, definitely more of a niche pick. But when we do, like when they do have teams in these official tournaments pulling out that Lucky Guy, you end up seeing him getting target banned as well. So that I think that goes to vouch for the sort of possibilities and integrity of such a wild pick.
Okay, and we did have some clarification here. It does look like we are going to lock in Little Girl instead of Lucky Guy. So Little Girl will be the mysterious LG we were all wondering about. Very exciting to see Little Girl brought into play. She can be very useful for both kiting and decoding. She does offer a significant decoding buff, especially when she's synced with someone, and she's able to teleport across the map as long as she's far enough away from a hunter to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. We just have to watch out for those pages when it comes to this type of lock-in. I found out recently that a little girl can cancel out Gravekeeper's shovel. So that's definitely something to look out for. But considering the synergy of the survivors, I don't anticipate that happening, but this could just be a bad omen just because I put it out there.
Oh yeah,
We'll see.
absolutely. The fact that they're both the first two lock-ins for this team also just makes that a little bit funnier. But we do have our third lock-ins. We're going to go ahead and ban the antiquarian and go ahead and pick that coordinator. Very smart banning the antiquarian. She's a very strong survivor, really strong harassment, especially in an area like Chinatown with all those close kiting areas, all those walls and ruins and alleyways that she can knock a hunter into and disarm them for a while. The coordinator, meanwhile, also has very strong stun in that gun. It's a one and done stun, but it is very effective. Stuns the hunter for quite some time, and as well as she only gets a decoding debuff when someone is chipped.
Yeah, for sure. I'm really interested in seeing how we're going to be able to utilize that stun. And of course, with survivors like the Gravekeeper and Coordinator, once their items have been depleted, you are free to go through the chest. I think in terms of chest distribution around the map, Chinatown isn't all that bad. So that's not too much to worry about. Our biggest concern in terms of resource distribution, I feel, is our ciphers. We saw it even just in the first half, how much pressure there was to get those ciphers done. And of course, if the hunter so chooses to bring that trump card and tap into abnormal, it really poses an even greater threat to decoding.
Oh, absolutely. And it looks like all the way from the very start of this tournament, we have one final manifestation. They've banned the seer and selected the mechanic. It looks like we are finally going to see our very first post adjustment mechanic in a tournament setting, which is incredibly exciting.
I'm so happy about this pick. Not biased at all, but
Yes,
very
as the
happy
first
nonetheless.
adjustments paper heart.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. You got me. I did choose Paper Heart with full intent to be like, yes, Tracy Resnick, my girl. Yes, you get that adjustment. Hopefully, uh, hopefully we're going to get to see a lot of mechanic action. I do really enjoy this adjustment. Just to go over it, that dreadful cowardly debuff that stacks up to 2 times. It used to be 35% when a teammate gets hit and can stack up to 70%, but now it's going to be 25. And with a maximum stack of 50, that is a 20% sort of difference when we've got that maxed out. Of course, the adjustment does fall on her bot, however, in terms of the overall decoding, but I do personally feel like this affects other survivors who end up picking up a doll as opposed to the mechanic who does give an additional 10% boost when she is the one controlling the doll.
Oh
The
yeah,
bot
there
has,
is a
yeah, sorry. The bot has
it's
kind of like
okay.
an inherent debuff due to not being quite a survivor, and of course, it doesn't have any persona as well. So there is a little bit of a slower decoding. But the strength of having that extra body for the survivor team is that you can do more than just decode. You can heal up, you can tinnitus bait, you can get that gate open, so long as we preserve the mechanics doll optimally. Of course, there's always the possibility of body blocking with a bot too, but of course, it takes away from those possibilities as well as feeding the hunter presence. And it requires so much precision that in the case that you do try and body block and fail it, you're uh, making yourself vulnerable and taking away your resources and of course feeding the hunter presence as well. You know, we are leaving up hunters who can share damage like the hermit. We did see some hermit gameplay today, and I definitely think that if hermit was to be picked, the bot can pose as much of a threat to the survivors as it does to hermit when it comes to sharing the damage. So there's that too.
Absolutely. There is just a lot of potential here. Oh my God, Mima, it looks like we have Fool's Gold coming in as our hunter this time. This is going to be very exciting. We have borrowed time on only Gravekeeper and Coordinator, tied on Gravekeeper only. We have broken windows on everyone else, and then Little Girl and Mechanic both have Flywheel on top of that, while the hunter is bringing Detention and Trump card.
Oh my god. Yeah. I have I have no words. I feel like uh my raw emotion speaks for itself. I'm really eager to see how this goes about. I definitely recall seeing a little bit of Fool's Gold. I think thinking back to our recent IJL, I remember there was a Fool's Gold match in Chinatown as well. And I think the mechanic was used. It was like a more than one decoder in that match too. It was overtime. I'm really glad to be able to see Fool's Gold utilized. I know he's a little bit notorious for being like, oh, he's more of a Thai hunter, oh, uh hard to win, but really when you're on top of the survivors and making sure you're stunting their decoding progress and healing, if you're able to stuff those rescues as well, he really poses a great threat. And with the possibilities of using the pickaxe to make up for a lot of distance on such an open map like Chinatown. You have very clear shots. Of course, there's always that possibility of accidentally getting your pickaxe into the ground. It does make for uh, even if you do get it on the ground, it's optimal for closing in distance to the survivor when you're uh I forget what it's called, like magnetizing yourself back to that pickaxe. But I'm really thrilled with these picks. It's really great to be able to see survivors and hunters that we have not seen yet in our season two, especially in our round three when the wind conditions are so intense.
Oh, absolutely. This is a very, very fun composition, both in the team coordination and the survivor pick as well. There is just so much potential for a lot of fun here. Honestly, I could see this match going either way. We do just need to get a three-man elimination or more for FNE to win. A draw and less will bring the win to H2O. So really anything can happen. It's all just going to come down to how these characters play, how these survivors are able to outlast the hunter, how the hunter is able to eliminate survivors and use his kit to his best ability. Overall, there's just so much that can happen. It's all very, very exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really looking to how this plays out because I feel like Fool's Gold, especially with the unstable ground, uh, it limits the possibilities and strength of some of the strongest kiting areas on Chinatown. I feel like the hotel area especially turns into a bit of a death trap when you get that unstable ground going up the stairs and all the walls. Oh, but it looks like our mechanic is going to be taking that spawn over at the hotel area.
And it looks like the Fool's Gold is going to go ahead and take that bait and go ahead and prime himself to chase after the little girl or the mechanic. Both very good options for a first kite. Both very strong decoders, much better to get them out of the way while you still can.
All
And we
right.
are going to be, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Juliet. Thank you so much.
We are heading into the second half of the third round. FNE hunting, H2O surviving. I'm Juliet. This is Mima. Good luck to both teams as we begin.
All right, let's see who's going to be our first target here. It looks like we're going to go for the mechanic, who doesn't quite drop their bot yet. Yeah, we are going to close in that distance.
Yep, and it looks like we are going to go ahead and transition right into that hotel. Try to gain some distance as we throw that pickaxe. We are going to land a hit right on the mechanic. Was able to avoid that chip damage, but she will take a hit right away.
Yeah, really great patience on Winter's part for avoiding these. Oh, unfortunately, we are going to get downed here, all while not expanding our bot quite yet. But I really appreciate the discipline when it came to the unstable ground, knowing just when to pull away before getting that chip hit in. We are going to be using the magnetic rock to go onto the coordinator cipher, who also happens to be having a decoding debuff now that the mechanic is on chair.
Oh, yes, absolutely. That is going to be very useful coming into effect, especially as the Gravekeeper is now in the area. Another one of the two characters with a decoding debuff. This could... And we do land a hit right on the Gravekeeper just as he rescues. This will be the only use of Tide in the game. We still have 5 ciphers remaining, and... Oh, an excellent blink from the Fool's Gold to go ahead and get that hit in on the mechanic.
We have to watch out, but in case that we give the Fool's Gold full presence here, but not quite. Mechanic is going to go down for a second time. Now by the restaurant. Ooh. I was afraid she was going to get shred basement. That would have been a definite.
Yeah, this is going to be a very tricky situation. We only have 1 cipher decoded so far, and the mechanic is chaired. She has not been able to use her bot at all. This could be very unfortunate to have her eliminated so early on. We do have the Gravekeeper currently being healed, it looks like, while we have the coordinator on a cipher.
Yeah, beautiful chip hit on the coordinator due to that magnetic rock. We are gonna be going to switch targets as we allow the mechanic to get sent back to the manor on her second chair. This forces the coordinator to abandon the cipher, and oh, like I said, this unstable ground. Ooh, excellent usage of our flare gun to save ourselves here.
Although we did get a chip hit in, which does bring the coordinator down to half health. Gonna go ahead and continue to chase her as we continue to have our ciphers decoded. Both survivors remaining are still looking to decode. We have a. It looks like the little girl is nearly finished with her cipher that will reveal the dungeon. Remember, we do need to get a draw in order to get this win. Still have about a minute left of cooldown on Blink for the Fool's Gold as he continues to chase, but he does get another chip in on the coordinator as she transitions towards the gate.
Oh, and this charge hit is going to get our coordinator down as the little girl transitions to finish up the coordinator's old cipher. But of course, knowing this, Pomelo is going to be carrying the coordinator to that chair outside of this two-story area.
Exactly, and he doesn't have to worry about that gun anymore, so he has much more room to leave the coordinator open to go ahead and chase after this little girl, pressure that cipher even more. Still are only at 3 ciphers remaining. This is a very tricky situation for H2O, who, remember, does... Oh, excellent flywheel to avoid that first hit, but getting caught on the Fool's Gold will lead the little girl to get hit again.
Beautiful page to get this Fool's Gold away. Oh, but our dash is going to get canceled out, but we are going to be utilizing the blink to get this coordinator down. Yeah, this lamppost did kind of stunt the dash ahead, but it worked out in the end. We are going to be having little girl try and move away, especially at half health.
Yes, and it looks like we have a chip, a magnetic ore set up right at the cipher that the Gravekeeper was decoding that the little girl is now moving to. She is trying to decode that, but we still are pressuring that last cipher. Once we get this draw in, the Fool's Gold just needs to get one more elimination to win. As long as they can continue to decode these ciphers, though, anything can happen. If the Gravekeeper gets out, we're going to try to aim to chip damage, but just try to wait out this rescue. Oh, but an excellent body block from the Gravekeeper to just prolong the fight for the coordinator just that much.
Beautiful chip on the coordinator here, all while adding the magnetic rock to stunt the decoding over here. It looks like we're gonna aim for the Gravekeeper as well. Oh, and beautiful pickaxe to chip the Gravekeeper twice and down him. It also cut off his shovel, so now Gravekeeper is going to be itemless. All of these survivors, of course, except for the little girl, are going to be depleted of their resources, but there is that mechanics full bot as an option. And it does look like Coordinator is going to pick it up and use it to heal herself. Really good call, although it will put her at a little bit of free damage with the chip hit.
Indeed, and it looks like we did get a chip hit on that little girl. Both of them are at a chip hit right now. The Coordinator did just get healed. Didn't have to use too much of the bot to get to that point either. We are trying to go ahead and land chip hits on the little girl remotely as we go ahead and try to just guard this cipher to the best of our ability. Gravekeeper will be rescued after half if he does get rescued at all. We do have the Coordinator in the area. We are going to try, I believe, to land. We are going to go ahead and down that Gravekeeper without the pickaxe. Carrying him will send him back to the manor.
Good call on moving away from the cipher right away, since that rock was placed after the pickaxe. Ooh! Beautiful chip on the little girl. We're looking at a double down situation with the Gravekeeper, unfortunately getting sent back to the manor with this second and final chair.
Yeah, all Fool's Gold needs to do is just get one more elimination, and he's got it. We are looking at a potential slug situation at this point, leaving the little girl to heal herself, although leaving her near a nearly prime cipher might be a bit of a risk. But we do have detention in play, and we have used trump card, and we have now switched to teleport, so we are ready for that endgame situation.
Oh, and we are going to be teleporting onto this little girl. Really excellent usage of the page to get some distance, but of course, we are going to get hit through this pallet. I will say they are doing a really good job of avoiding the unstable ground and just knowing when to pull away from it.
Oh yeah, the timing is very good. Unfortunately, it does look like we are against a dedicated Fool's Gold player, someone who definitely knows how to utilize this character. Being able to pressure the map with all of those magnetic ores has been one of the most useful things, and it looks like we are just trying. We do have Tinnitus on that Coordinator. We are going to try and eliminate her to the best of our ability.
Mhm. And we are going to be utilizing the bot to decode the cipher over here, opening it up and giving that to Nidus. But Fool's Gold is closing in on this bot, who unfortunately is going to go down due to the 2 chip hits. Uh, and since the coordinator was the one controlling the bot, it did reveal her location very clearly. She is closing in on this little girl who we are going to possibly be able to pick up and memory sync to.
They are trying to aim for that final cipher, trying to just turn the tide on this match to the best bit of their ability.
Ooh,
Oh,
ooh,
at
despite the
times,
usage of the page.
yeah, that is going to be unfortunate. And if we can land that hit on the little girl, that will be the end of that. She is currently trying to do her best to kite. The coordinator is in a pretty difficult situation to pick her up on. If the little girl times it just right, she could pallet rescue before the hunter. But the hunter is just dedicated to going ahead and downing her for good because she does have no self heal. And it looks like the coordinator does not have a self heal in play either.
We are closing in that distance on the coordinator with a teleport, and we're going to finish off with a 4-man elimination uh, for FNE. Congratulations.
Yes, very well done. GG's all around. This was a very close match. It all came down to just that one second half match in the red shirt, I mean, the Moon Liver part. Just beautiful team coordination, beautiful hunter gameplay. These hunters have been absolutely delightful to watch. The breaking wheel, the reptilian, the fool's gold, the um the shadow, just I am drawing the blank of the first 2 hunters played because I have just been so invested in this. But overall, this has just been an incredibly enjoyable round to watch, an absolute treat just for everything that's happened.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. It's been an absolute pleasure to get to watch these matches, and I'm really thankful to have been able to commentate for so many matches today. And it's been a pleasure to watch both H2O and FNE go up against each other. Once again, it's really nice to be able to have all these teams really be neck and neck. They're so on par with one another that they really have to give it their all. Uh, and to bring out like all the stops, not just what's meta, but what is familiar to them, what they're comfortable with, and what they're experienced with playing with one another.
Oh yeah, absolutely. The coordination from everyone was just so well, and an interesting bit of coordination, especially with FNE, not only with their survivor teams, but knowing when to bring out each hunter and when to have each what hunter to have each hunter, what character to have each hunter play. Overall, it was really exciting to get to see a different hunter each round. Um, you don't really get to see that too often, but I really am glad we got to see it at least once in this tournament. And it always is a shame to see such a strong team be sent off in a knockout bracket. Thank you so much, H2O, for your participation. You did a fantastic job. It all just came down to that one unfortunate match. But congratulations to FNE, a nearly flawless